City are the first reigning top-flight champion to lose 5 in a row in all competitions since Chelsea did it in March 1956. And this is a reminder of those last results for them, culminating in this loss today to Tottenham Hotspur. The loss to Brighton before that, 4 put past them by Sporting, beaten by Bournemouth before that, and then of course in cup competition, Spurs against Manchester City as well. Frank Leboeuf is with us right now, looking very sharp and very dapper and very serious about what we're seeing here. I'll get to you in a minute, Frank.
Where are we going to start?
Well, is this a crisis in City's terms?
Mini, you lose 5 games in the spin and you lose 14 goals in those 5 games. That's a problem. For any team. That's a problem. Big problem. Rodri's not coming back this season. Kovacic is out. He has to he's out at the moment. He has to figure it out. But they are giving teams, and we've talked about this early in the season, they are giving more chances away, they are giving teams more opportunities. And also, there is another facet to this. In those 5 games, they've only scored 4 goals. So it's both ends. And we saw in this game, if you watched it, the first 20 minutes, Erling Haaland missed chances. Hesitant, particularly the first one. But the way that they crumbled, the way that they were so open, that was worrying to me. They play like that, they defend like that against Liverpool next week, it'll be more than 4. I tell you that now. And I know we'll get to Tottenham, because there was so many great stories about Tottenham with the players coming back and the players we were missing. But obviously, I got this game so wrong. Tottenham, 2 centre-halves out. Bentancur suspended currently on racism charges. Tottenham away form, 16th in the Premier League in away form. You know, losing at Palace and all this sort of, losing at Brighton.
Missing Romero, missing Van de Ven.
Missing the 2 first starting centre-halves. Got Davis and Dragusin in there. Got Maddison back in the team, who's been out of the team. He's not been playing well. Had his best game by a million miles this season. And so did Kulusevski again. Absolutely brilliant. But I was looking at this going, right, contract signed by the City manager, that cloud has gone. They're at home. They're not going to lose 5 games in the spin. We are going to see a big response from the champions against a weakened, wounded Spurs side that don't travel well. So I'm thinking 3-0. That was my prediction, 3-0 City. I did not see this coming for those reasons. But Tottenham were brilliant, and City, he can smile all he wants. And the questions he's been asked, I think, are relevant. Are this group of players who have done so well for you, do they still have the legs and the desire to drag themselves out of this mini crisis? And that is going to be such a good watch over the next few weeks to see if City are going to respond or not.
Look, there's a lot to unpack from a City perspective. A lot of credit to go to Spurs, which we will get to. This is a crisis. Let's not, we can't hide. This would be a crisis for anybody. Albeit when you're Manchester City and you've won 5 titles in the last 6, you've got enough equity that you can lose 5 or 6 in a row and people will still believe in you come next season or whenever it is. And while you've lost 5 in a row in all competitions, you're still sitting second in the table. So it's a crisis, but you can absorb that, kind of given City's own record and current standing. Now, while Pep Guardiola is saying that this is not a team that concedes often, I think the point he's trying to make is we don't concede multiple goals in the same game. But City have been struggling to keep clean sheets, which we spoke about all of last season. I think I'm right in saying 13 clean sheets in the league last season. That's not great for a team of City standing, a team that you expect to be sitting top of the Premier League. When you stop keeping clean sheets that way, inevitably you find yourself in this kind of spell where you just can't turn it around. Now, there's a lot. Guardiola, who's proven himself very good up in the attacking third for both club and country. I thought he was very poor defensively today in a way that I've criticised Spurs. I thought Guardiola absolutely mirrored that. And then talking about when you see anybody run by Kyle Walker, that sends alarm bells ringing. because I can't tell you if I've seen that before. And now all of a sudden, Timo Werner just does nothing special, just runs by Kyle Walker, albeit it's the fourth goal. But then you start to sit back and again to the question, is this team just starting to age out? When you see Gundogan not able to have the legs through midfield, is this team just starting to age out? And you wonder if you do need a rethink. Last thing I'll add is, I thought City were the better team up until the first goal. From the time the first goal went in, the City crowd changed. The City players' heads dropped, and I felt that it showed a side of disbelief on them. But the crowd, you could hear how anxious the crowd was once that first goal went in, and everything just capitulated from there on in.
Is this a City in decline, Frank?
It could be the beginning of it. I mean, there is an era, and it's always the end of an era. And I've been through that with the French national team, and it came like that. And we couldn't do anything in 2002 during the 2002 World Cup, where we lost everything: the fitness, the sharpness, the hunger, the anger, and the fortune. And everything goes together, and suddenly you become average. And it seems to be like that. They have the chances to score with Allen at the beginning of the game. They don't, and suddenly they go down after conceding one goal. So it couldn't be the decline, it could be the end of it, which is sad, but it has to be to rebuild something after and to be again successful. It goes with our lives as football players, where we go up, we go at the best, at our best, and suddenly we decline, and that's a speedway of a human life in a way as a football player. But maybe what we're going to see, unless Guardiola finds something miracle. But you don't lose 5 games in a row, conceding so many goals, based on the team who normally get the position and highly on the pitch, and suddenly not having the fitness and being capable of defending. They don't know how to defend. They knew how to get the ball back as soon as possible, to keep on pressurizing the opponent. They don't do that anymore. So they open up and they don't defend well. They don't defend as a unit. So it's worrying for Guardiola and the citizens.
Came out at second half, right? They're trailing 2-0. They're at home, and you said they're flat. City are flat. That's what you were saying at the beginning of the second half. Can you remember seeing them like this?
Well, not off the top of my head, but I mean, look, we'll find out if this side have the energy and the drive to get back. I suspect things will improve. How much, I don't know. Mother Nature doesn't stop for anybody. And there are quite a few getting older. I mean, Gundogan's not going to be the same player he was before he left for Barcelona. Kevin De Bruyne's had his ailments, and he's at times, I mean, he can still do the brilliant stuff when he was on the bench, and he's had some injury problems. But you just feel he's not got that sharpness anymore. Phil Foden's been off form. Savinho's been a flash in the pan. Hasn't been able to, do the stuff at Manchester at the moment that he was doing for Girona. Thus far, he's looked a little bit lightweight. Does he need to bring Jack Grealish in for a more sustained run of games? We'll find out. When they won the Champions League and the League 2 years ago, he had the balance on this side almost perfect. Yeah, that wasn't a great game against Inter in the final, but most of the performances that season, to Frank's point, was not just about the attacking play, but it was about looking after the defence. It was keeping the back door shut when the others were going forward. They've forgotten how to do that. They have absolutely, it's the cavalry. It's like everybody's bombing forward, and they were so easy to pick off today, and not just today, but particularly today, it was scary. And if they don't figure that out, other teams in the Premier League have and will pick them off. So that's going to be a coaching issue as well as a personnel issue, and we'll find out if he's able to do it. But there's a lot of thinking to be done here. You know, because any team that loses 5 in a row, you know, most teams that lose 5 in a row are down the bottom of the table and the manager's waiting for the phone call to get the sack. Clearly City are not in that. Clearly City are not in that position, and neither is their manager. But that's what it feels like. 5 games. These players will never have felt that. They've had so much success. They lose a game or two, and then they come back and they go in 7, 8, 9, 10 game winning streaks. This is a crisis of confidence for them. The way that this Tottenham side took them apart was brilliant. Some of the goals they scored, I have to say, were just fantastic.
Yeah, let's get to Spurs, shall we, Shaka? They were magnificent today.
They absolutely were. And as I mentioned, I thought City started the better. And Spurs, despite their injury issues, particularly defensively, seemed to cope well enough. And I know Haaland had a couple of chances that he should have done better with. But once they got that first goal, and credit to Spurs, even though you are pinned back of sorts, never stop chasing lost causes. Kulusevski chasing on Guardiola on the left-hand side to start things off. Kulusevski, who has been absolutely brilliant over the course of this season. I thought, again, showing his quality. Craig mentioned it, Maddison coming in, probably having his best game in a Spurs shirt. Heung-min Son, who, while Mother Nature, to Craig's point, catches up with us all, Son just seems to just stay one step ahead. And even though he's had his injury issues, and Postecoglou took him off because he has to kind of manage Son's minutes, just continues to be such an inspirational player and captain for Spurs. As a keeper, I have to mention it. Vicario, who's come in for his criticisms, I thought had a brilliant game again today. Shot stopping was simply on point. Everything about Spurs, especially when you consider their issues coming into this game, not just in terms of personnel, but you lose to Ipswich, and you had 2 weeks to sit and think about that, and to sit about thinking going to the Etihad on the back of that. I thought the response in every single department was absolutely was brilliant.
Where did it come from? Because we don't know what we're going to get from Spurs at the moment.
Well, away from home, apart from today. Spurs have themselves a very good manager. Now, I can't fathom the Crystal Palace away, the Brighton game away, the Ipswich at
Newcastle.
home. Yeah, I just, you know, it is a head scratcher. But, you know, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. They have themselves a good manager. They just have to figure it out, right? They're playing the best football they've played for years. They've just beaten Man City twice, right? They just have to figure out these mistakes against the smaller teams, and maybe it's you know, being blasé that the game is so easy against, you know, Ipswich at home at times, and the possession is, and they didn't have the bulky possession today, and they showed that there is another side to the game. But they have themselves a good manager, right? I'm steadfast on that. I mean, how successful he'll be or not, I don't know. But he knows what he's doing. But today, it wasn't just Maddison, it wasn't just all those players. Ben Davies and Dragusin. I mean, Ben Davies, you know, you talk about squad players. He was their starting left back a few years ago. He's not now. He knows he's not a starter. He's a Welsh international who's got a lot of it. But you talk about needing a squad. And you get this guy that comes in, right, and he's playing in a kind of unnatural position, although he's played there before many times. Away from home against Erling Haaland with a new partner, because the other two are out. I thought he was the epitome of this Tottenham performance. And it just all snowballed from there. The confidence that came out. They looked like they believed they were going to rip open this City defence every time they got on the ball, and they almost did. So that was absolutely brilliant. They have to figure out the consistency, the away form against the smaller teams, and then the head-scratching games where you think, right, they're going to beat them 5-0 today and they lose. If they can figure that out, they'll be in the top 4 this year. There's no doubt. If
you look at Spurs' goals today and just break them down for what they were, you know, we spoke about Kulusevski chasing only lost goals for the first goal, brilliant football for the second, which Craig mentioned, and then the second half starts. Spurs win the ball back, they break, and as I'd mentioned, just when you're looking for City shirts to be the ones closing that gap because they're behind, they're under pressure, it's Pedro Porro and one other who's who is quickest to it, quickest in support. That's to make it 3-0. You're supposed to be defending a 2-goal lead, but it was Spurs on the night who just quite clearly wanted it more, and it showed. And then the fourth goal, again, okay, 2 substitutes. Brendan Johnson falling in at the far post. Okay, and Timo Werner, you make the point that they've got fresh legs. But it just seemed to be Spurs who had all the running on the day. And if you're defending champions and you sit back against a game at home where you're looking for a response and the opponent are the ones who do more running, then that's where Pep Guardiola has to ask a lot more questions of his team.
Frank, what can you say about Spurs today?
That they showed to the world that they can be consistent, and Ange Postecoglou can use that and use that game to put the big pressure on that team. I always say that life at Tottenham was too easy for the players. We didn't feel the pressure from anybody, the board, the fans, the medias, even the coach. But today, Ange Postecoglou has to use that game as how to find a way again to prove to the world that they can keep on doing that. So the consistency was there, the quality was there, the unity was there. So everything was there, even with players injured. And Craig and Xhaka have the right to mention Dragusin, Davis and Vicario, because they've been absolutely fantastic today on top of the others. But what they showed and how they proved to the world again that they could be playing for 90 minutes at that highest level is for an insurance that Ange Postecoglou has to put a pressure he has to put on the players to keep on doing like that.
Just a quick word on City. We talked about a mini crisis. If Liverpool win tomorrow, and that's expected, it's not a given, but it is Southampton, bottom of the league, they could put City away next week, or whenever it is, next weekend at Anfield. Be 11 points.
Yeah.
Does anybody do we think City can close 11 points the way they're playing? No. And the way Liverpool are playing?
Well, as Xhaka, what happened to him, when they had 14 points ahead, with Newcastle.
All right. Nobody's talking about that, Frank. Nobody's talking about that.
Because previously we've seen how strong they are in the second half. Do you not believe that they could do that with this squad right now, with the way that they're looking, if they were to fall?
Well, there's no. Look, it's all ifs and buts and maybes. Liverpool might drop some points. Who knows? Who the hell thought Tottenham were going to go there today and win 4-0 with the squad they had, the players they had out, and their away form? That's how bonkers it is sometimes. So you just don't know. But if it goes to plan, and then they beat City at Anfield, it's 11 points. That's the way they're playing. This is not the City side of a couple of years ago when they were steamrolling teams. It's just not. I mean, they've only scored 4 goals in the last 5 games. It's not like they're getting beat by the odd goal in 7. You know what I mean? Like 4-3 and 5-4. They're not creating as many chances. They were the ones today that looked a little, not clueless is a strong word for Man City, but lacking guile in the final third as the game went on. And I think that's why the crowd were flat. So, I think if I'm Liverpool, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You do not want to get ahead of yourself, but it's hard sometimes. You think, we beat them tomorrow, Southampton, and we nail City next week, then they're kind of on the back burner.
Well, I'm glad you did bring City back up, because we need to just mention the Rodri situation. Obviously, we saw him bringing his Ballon d'Or out before the game. There's no Rodri. There was no Kovacic today either, and he could be out for a few weeks. What are they going to do here? Because it can't be the whole season. It's just, there's no Rodri. This is what happened.
Well, yeah, Kovacic will be back. And by the way, Kovacic has generally done a very good job. He's a good player. I mean, he's played for some of the biggest clubs on the planet. But yeah, I mean, you take Rodri out of any team, and it's a problem. But listen, we're not on the sympathy train here. This is Manchester City we're talking about. This is the best coach on the planet. It's his job now. When things are going great, it's not easy, but it's easier. And when things are going badly, and they are for Man City at the moment, That's the time when you know who's with you and who's not. On the training ground, roll the sleeves up, working hard. Is the manager selecting the right players? Is he going to put, centre-halves in midfield as he has before to try and shore it up? He has to figure that out. There's going to be nobody in England is going to have any sympathy for Man City when it comes to injuries. Absolutely nobody. They've had success, they have a good squad, and like every other side, they have to get on with it. I feel they'll figure it out, but if Liverpool win tomorrow and beat them next week, that is going to be a hell of a mountain to climb if they are going to win the title this year.
Frank, what are you feeling about Man City's midfield struggles?
Well, there is a mix of, for me, some players who are there but still inexperienced, and yes, Rodri absence is a real issue. That's a real issue. We are talking about the best player on the planet in that position, and Kovacic being not there, is also adding issues to Guardiola. He has to find somebody. Maybe he has to buy somebody if needed, if they can, in the winter window. But otherwise, I don't see a player, even if I highly rank Lewis, for example, I don't see a player having not even half of the quality of a Rodri in that team, in that squad. So it's a problem. Maybe Stones can be in the middle, maybe they can find somebody else, but you can see that there are something not good going on. Walker is not the Walker of before. I can see Guardiola is a good player, but offensively, but you have to secure something defensively. And again, we go back to the basics of what Guardiola was planning on. Being so good offensively that when they lose the ball, they get it back very high, which is not the case anymore. And that's an issue.
Felix, our director, has something that he'd like us to comment on, apparently, before we move on to talk about Arsenal against Nottingham Forest. He's made something for us. What do we think?
Is that where Pep is going wrong? He's dressing like Frank.
Yeah, I mean,
Well.
to be fair, if you're a bald man with a beard, there's half a chance you're going to look like those two. You're halfway there.
Who's the better actor? That's what I want to know.
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Ali and Stevie are here, and they've been tasked with answering your questions tonight.
Oh.
Just the two of you.
Okay.
Ready?
Excellent.
I think
Ready?
so.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you've actually mentioned this in the show, but we'll get it anyway. What would Amorim's biggest takeaway be from today's match?
He's got a lot of work to do. Ali said it in the shot. The goalkeeper made some important saves, so he's penciled in. Probably Bruno Fernandes is penciled in. But after that, I'm not sure anybody particularly solidified a spot with any sort of outstanding performance. In the middle of the park, they didn't control the game in the middle of the park. Defensively, the three centre-backs really didn't contribute an awful lot. They sort of shuffled a wee bit from side to side. They shuffled up a little bit. They didn't help the two wide guys, Diallo and Dallo, because they expected them to come back and cover that hole as well, which is what they're supposed to do. Going forward, other than the goal, I don't think the goalkeeper had another save to make, really, did he?
One moment we got Nacho in the second half, but to your point, we have to think hard as
Yeah,
to...
and Amorim's going to have to think hard.
Ali's question was, who has said, me boss for the next game? Who has made it a sure certainty that they're in?
Fernandes and Onana probably are certainties.
Also, Amorim said post-match that his players were thinking too much. Stevie, how do you balance giving players enough information to do what you want, but at the same time not overloading them with too much information so that they can play with their instincts?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. When you're coming in, straight off the bat, you're implementing a new system, then it's almost impossible not to overload them with too much information. because they need it. In order to play in the position and do the job properly, they need to know a lot of things that they haven't been doing maybe in their entire career. So unfortunately, Amaroon's in a position where he's going to have to accept.
Is a problem, Stevie?
You know, I think there's actually two sides to this. I think the good side is, it sounds to me as though he wants to stay. You know, I got from listening to him and looking at him that he wants a contract. That's great news for Liverpool fans. Unfortunately, the other side of the coin is, if there's no offer yet, what is the problem? And I guess the problem really is, it's down to money, no question. And I'm a little surprised that Salah's come out again. He's already been out once. You know, for a guy who doesn't speak to the press, to come out again and say what he did, I think what he's doing is looking for a little bit of, not leverage, but he's trying to tell them, you need to offer me something pretty quickly. Because let's be honest, in January he can sign for anybody else. He can sign a contract. So I think he's trying to push the envelope. I think he's trying to push them into making an offer. But he's also telling us that there hasn't been one.
He's key, Stevie, to Liverpool and to everything that they do. You're talking about if it does come down to money, is this a situation where Liverpool should be breaking the bank to keep a player like this?
Look, I'm always talking about you have to look after the club, you know. And the problem Liverpool have is if they give this guy, you know, he's already on, what, between 350 and 400,000 a week. He's already on that. So clearly he's wanting more. Now, you've got Van Dijk. Can you afford to give not only these two players that amount of money? Because if I'm Van Dijk, I'm as important as Mo Salah is. Okay, he gets all the pats in the back with the goals, but I'm in charge at the back. I'm the one that's stopping the opposition from getting in. And then it's a snowball effect after that, because then everybody wants more money. And so Liverpool have to be... They're walking a fine line between losing one of the best assets.
Who would you keep if you could only choose one?
Wow, that's not a very nice question.
Sorry. Starting strong for a Monday FC.
Wow. I don't know. They're both as important. They're both as important. You know, all you've got to do is look over the road at Man City, how they can't defend. That's how important having a guy in charge at the back is, a proper central defender. That's how important it is.
Who makes the most difference when they're not available to that team? Which is the biggest absence?
There's not an answer to all of these questions. There's just not. Well, because you have to understand that they're both as important as each other. You know.
How old is Van Dijk?
Yeah, it might be harder for Stevie, obviously. Very close to his heart, Liverpool. So go on, Frank.
How old is Van Dijk? Before I
34.
I say what I want to say.
Van Dijk is 30. No,
33.
I thought Van Dijk was younger, no?
No.
Wait, yeah. So we have to check that out. But really, I think Liverpool tries to anticipate the fact that one day, for Mo Salah, 33?
33, Van Dijk, yes.
33, you said? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's complicated. I will always go for a defender than an attacker, because a defender can always sort most problems out, where a striker, especially somebody like Salah, who needs to be fully confident to give his best, if he doesn't score 1, 2, 3 during 1, 2, 3 games, maybe his confidence will go down and maybe he won't be as effective as he is right now. What I like about Mo Salah is the professionalism that he's showing. Yeah, he's speaking out. Maybe he shouldn't have done that already once, now twice, but he's showing how professional he is, scoring goals after goals, and being the Salah that we love. But I understand also Liverpool wondering when that's going to stop, and anticipating that in a way that, okay, we give 2 years to Salah next season, and next season is not there. It's not the Salah we had, because it can happen very soon. We know how it works when you play as a forward.
If you go down the road to Manchester City, I think you're seeing there at the moment what can happen if the players just start to grow old in front of you. You don't know how much longer Salah's going to go on performing at this level. I mean, my answer to the question will be, of the three at the moment, I'd keep Salah as the number one. He's the game changer. He keeps coming up with big goals that change matches, win matches for them, win points. And he looks in terrific shape still. And I really quite interpret what he did there. I mean, as the boys were saying, he doesn't usually give interviews. He's coming out, he's going public, and he's saying, look, the club haven't even offered me a contract. Look what I just did again today. 2 more goals. It's mad, isn't it? So he wants that offer. He definitely wants to stay. There's no doubt about that. But he's wondering and he's mystified by the silence at the moment. But yeah, he probably wants 3 years. You know, are they going to give him 3 years to take him up to 35? Well, that would be doubtful. So it's something to talk about, isn't it?
Would you give a 32-year-old 3 years, a 32-year-old Mo Salah?
All things being even, yes, I would. The trouble is, and Stevie makes a point, when you're on 300 plus or whatever it is a week, then that changes the discussion entirely. Because while maybe, it's almost silly to say, you can take a gamble, I say in inverted commas, on 100 grand a week, which again, I know sounds silly. 300 is pretty ridiculous, because if that third year he has a down year, that's a lot to absorb. And again, to Stevie's point, not only those two, you also got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's going out to contract, who's attracting interest from big clubs. He has every right to go in and say, well, hold on a minute, you can get a whole lot more runway out of me because of my age. We've got, at the very least, speculation about Real Madrid and others. Those two aren't attracting that kind of interest. I want to be on that kind of money. And from the time the wage structure becomes kind of fractured like that, everybody who's going out to contract and negotiating a new deal, that's their benchmark. They know that these players are on 3 or 4, whatever it is they settle on. Okay, maybe I'm not scoring 30 goals a season like Mo Salah is, but I could probably get in at 250. I could come. Everything just really does snowball. So that for me is a determining factor. Mo Salah takes a year, yeah, no problem.
See, the thing is, FSG, ever since they came to Liverpool, have absolutely looked at the books. It's not just about, well, we're just going to sign anybody and everybody, give them all the money they want, and end up like a Leeds United. They haven't done that. Everything's been calculated. There's a plan in place. And that's what I meant when I was talking about it's the future of the club is more important than just right now what's going on. And so you can't give Salah and Van Dijk and Trent Alexander, you can't give them 300 and 400 grand. Because one, it blows up the whole thing because everybody wants it, but you've also got a budget to work with. And you can't take your eyes off that. There are so many different facets to this. That's why it's so difficult.
So difficult.
And they did it, listen, they did it with Manny. It was, okay, we need to keep one of them. One has to go. And that's because they're looking after the future of the club. They are not going to turn around and give somebody $500,000 a week or whatever it is they want for 3 years when, as we've said, Frank said it can change very quickly, and then you're stuck with a guy on $500,000 a week.
But how do you replace a player as special as him?
Well, here's the thing. This might come as a surprise. Ever since Bill Shankly came to Liverpool, when Ron Yates went, when St John went, they asked who's going to replace them. And then Dalglish came, and Rush came, and Fowler came, and Gerrard came, and Salah came, and Van Dijk came. And the club will always survive. It's not about just one guy. What do we do? Everybody said that when Manny left. Oh, how are we going to replace Manny? Well, guess what? We've got Luis Diaz, and we got Gakpo, who this year has taken a step forward. So that's the kind of things you can't get involved in that if you're in charge at Liverpool of what are we going to do when he's not here. You've got to look forward, you've got to do what's right for the club in the big picture and not just cater for one person.
But he is here right now and he's obviously talking again about his contract situation. Is that going to be a distraction? Is that going to derail Liverpool in any way in this title run?
I absolutely think you can see that it is not a distraction at all. This guy's come up yet again this season with important goals when it's mattered most. That's what he's always been since he came to Liverpool. The guy who comes up with a goal when it's needed. And he's still doing it, even though he's going through this problem with his contract. So I don't expect anything to change on the field from Mo Salah.
I will say this, as even what he says, and I understand how it's kind of set tongues wagging. Any other player in that situation, as a player, I would expect them to do exactly the same. You throw in on the mantle to the club to respond. I don't have a problem with it. And as far as statements go, I thought it was more unsettling, well 9 months ago, wherever it was, when after whatever game it was, he says about Klopp, you just wait till I speak. I thought that was more of a jab at the time Jurgen Klopp and the football club. That was more of a concern, and that didn't unsettle him. So I don't see this having any kind of effect.
Well, obviously, Liverpool right now 8 points clear of Manchester City at the top of the Premier League table. Manchester City with their 5th consecutive loss at the weekend. That loss came to Tottenham Hotspur. These are some of the notable Champions League matches coming up on match day 5. Liverpool at Anfield to host Real Madrid, and we're seeing that Vinny Jr. will be out of this clash. He's got an injury. As we take a look at the odds brought to you by ESPN Bet, there's obviously recent history between these two sides in this very competition, and this is going to be one of the biggest games and one of the standouts as well. But Vinny Jr. not being there could be 3 to 4 weeks, Shaka. That's a big miss for Real Madrid right now.
Absolutely it is. The good thing, I guess, if you want to look for some kind of a silver lining around this, is Kylian Mbappe, and you expect his availability to play on the left-hand side, where he's preferred. So it gives him an opportunity to at least kind of address some of his own poor form, playing in a position that he knows a whole lot better. But Vinicius Jr. has established himself as one of the, if not the biggest game changer in the game today. And while this season hasn't been as good as we've come to expect of Vinicius Jr., still having him on the park gives every single defender a different headache. So it's a blow. But if I'm Ancelotti, and I'm sitting at Real Madrid dressing room, coming into this one, for all the criticism, for all the concern, the alarm bells that have been ringing everywhere in Madrid all season long about Real, about their performances, about Kylian Mbappe, they win their game in hand. They're a point back of Barcelona. And Barcelona, by the way, who we've sat here and said, I think I'm right in saying, well, they were number 1 in the power rankings up until recently, which kind of speaks to how good they're playing. They have been that good. But now all of a sudden, Real Madrid are a game in hand away from being a point back. So I'm telling my judgment, it paints a picture that people are judging us by our own standards. This is a crisis by our standards, not anybody else's. If we go and play our game, if we are ourselves, we can win this game even at Anfield. That's what I'm trying to convince everybody in the dressing room of.
Let's take a look at the predictions from everybody, and I do want to come to Ian Dark on this because obviously Ian Dark is our lead La Liga commentator, calls a lot of Real Madrid games, but Ian, you see Liverpool winning this one.
Yeah, I do, because Real Madrid have got a big injury crisis at the moment. They may have to play the youngster Raul Asensio in central defence again because Alaba's out a long time. Eder Militao is out with a cruciate injury. Chouameni, who could fill in there at centre-back, he won't be fit either. They have got Lucas back. I think he's travelled, so he might be right back so they can move Valverde back in the midfield. But who's going to play up front? There's no Rodrigo. There's no Vinicius. It'll be Mbappe, and then they're going to have to play Arda Güler, Endrick, maybe Brahim Diaz up front. So it's a bit of a makeshift Real Madrid team, and the form Liverpool are in and a European night at Anfield, I think Liverpool, although they haven't beaten Real Madrid since 2009, I think it is, the last 8 meetings, including 2 Champions League finals, I think Liverpool can edge this.
Stevie, you're confident too?
Yeah, the fact that Vinny's not playing is absolutely huge. You know, he without a shadow of doubt, all season long, has been the spark for them going forward. No question. because it certainly hasn't been Mbappe or anybody else. And the fact that Ian's just told you about the injury crisis at the back, I mean, on paper, Liverpool are never going to have a better chance to beat Real Madrid. The only thing that you have to think about is that the Champions League does strange things to Real Madrid. That's it. After,
Real Madrid do strange things
honestly,
to Liverpool as well.
That's what you're relying on right now if you're Real Madrid, that something strange happens because it's the Champions League.
Frank, you've given it a draw here because if Frank as well, as a fellow Frenchman, this is really a chance for Kylian Mbappe to really, really make a statement. It could all be on him.
Yes, it can be on him, and it's an opportunity for him. Vinicius Junior wouldn't be there to show to the world that playing on the left side, he can be very important to Real Madrid. And I almost put Real Madrid winning 1-0 or 2-1 against Liverpool because I was thinking, I tried to put myself in on the players' brains. In Real Madrid is almost a must-win game. Where Liverpool, they are okay in the Champions League. They don't really need that win. And they have to win against Manchester City. So if I'm a football player, I play for Liverpool, I say, okay, we're going to play there, but I don't want to be injured because I want to be performing very well against Manchester City because I want to put City 11 points behind me and ensure something. So I'm not sure that Liverpool will be as focused as Real Madrid will be, and it's why I gave a draw because it's at Anfield Road. It's a big game, but I'm not sure that Liverpool will be absolutely 100% in terms of focusing to that game. So I picked a draw.
I couldn't disagree with you more, Frank. I honestly couldn't disagree with you more.
I like that.
A Champions League game at Anfield. This is not some lower tier European team that Liverpool are playing. And I can assure you, if I'm Arne Slot, I'm going to remind my players that the last time Real Madrid were at Anfield, they slaughtered Liverpool 5-2. Liverpool, the atmosphere is going to be incredible. Anfield has a special feel about it that you just can't explain on nights like this. And as I said, 100% Liverpool and Liverpool's players, you're playing Real Madrid at home in front of a crowd that is going to be really, really raucous and loud. I don't see any sort of thinking about Manchester City whatsoever. Liverpool are going to be going for this victory right from the get-go.
We are going to find out, obviously, on Wednesday. As for La Liga's table, though, Ian, it's pretty tight at the top now, and we're seeing ourselves quite the title race ahead. Real Madrid with those 30 points, 4 behind Barcelona, but as Shaka mentioned, they've still got a game to play. A point back of Real Madrid is Atleti as well. Could a bad result, Ian, against Liverpool cause problems for Real Madrid going forward in La Liga? With Vinny being out as well.
I don't. They are in a bit of a hole, in the Champions League as well. They've lost 2 of the 4 games so far. They lost at Lille and they lost at home to Milan. So they're down in 18th place of the 36 teams. When were Real Madrid last 18th in any table? But no, I don't think it's going to affect their La Liga form. The injury situation might, but I think they've got Getafe at home next. So they're going to win that 3 points. No disrespect to Getafe, but Real Madrid will win this. But I think we've got the best title race we've had since probably the Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo era, because you've now got 3 teams in it. Looked like Barcelona were running away with it when they won the Clásico 4-0. You thought they were going to draw clear, but maybe teams are beginning to work them out a bit. The offside trap, they dropped 2 points in the last 4 minutes at Celta Vigo at the weekend. So, things are happening and it's tightening up, and that's good for the neutrals anyway.
Totally Football Show today. Champions League, the old lady at the Villa, Real at Anfield, and the Parisians at the Last Chance Saloon. Who's got their name on the cup, aside from Gianni Infantino probably? We'll be talking about that. Plus, Valencia return to action, Renaissance in Florence, and a blooming awful time for Rosa in Leipzig. All that and more in this Totally Football Show. Oof, listener, you're back. 26th of November, as I sit here in the Totally Football Show studio with legacy contributors James Horncastle.
Hello, James.
And Julian Laurence.
Hello, James.
James, you're just back from New York. New York!
Woo, New York, baby.
Yeah, that's probably my moment of the week, actually.
Was it?
The pizza there.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Which I was all ready to hate on.
Yeah.
And instead, because I think it's a kind of bastardization of actual real pizza.
Where'd you go?
I went to this place called L'Industry, where producer Lucy has also been.
Okay.
And I must say, like, the vibe in there alone, it gave me everything I wanted out of an Italian-American experience. There was a guy at the counter with a beanie hat which had Esposito Sausage Company on the back.
Nice.
And obviously Italians would pronounce that Esposito, but we were in New York, so. And then they did this fig jam and bacon slice.
Right.
Which again, I was prepared to hate on.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best slices of pizza I've ever had.
Really?
Jesus.
Even you as a connoisseur?
Have you had many slices of pizza?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it hit all the spots. There was a Materazzi shirt in there, which again, when I walked in, I was just like, don't know about this.
Right.
But it was fantastic. It was popping.
You were there on the jolly, right, in New York? You were there on the jolly in New York, be honest.
No, I was there on very serious business.
Serious business. Fun
We know
fact.
that's not true.
Esposito means
It does, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the name given to,
children born non from Sporsy.
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cultural corner.
All right, Jules, what have you got? We've done moment of the week already.
But that's his moment of the week, the pizza.
Okay.
It's definitely not
but
Juventus Milan.
No.
I thought maybe we were
Milan
going to
Juventus.
touch on the big international match at San Siro, Italy-France.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a yeah. that
Have we
was-
had a show since then? I don't think we have.
No, because you refused to do shows.
do
on
one.
internet.
Opened up a can of worms there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, anyway.
no, I
France
just-
beat Italy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Set pieces.
It was just easy. But every set piece beat Italy anyway, because 6 of the last 7 goals have been conceded on set pieces, not just against France, but in the last few games. So
It was pretty painful because it was like if Italy didn't lose by a 2-goal scoreline, they would have topped that group. And
yeah.
instead, they had one job.
yeah. And now they play Germany in the quarterfinals when we play Croatia with the second leg in Paris.
France-Croatia again, huh?
Yeah, again. I mean, the Italy-Germany again. To be
Oh,
fair.
yeah,
It's
also.
the most tasty of the 4 quarterfinals anyway.
Very nice. What are the other two?
The Netherlands against Spain. Oh, she's okay. A bit tasty, but not.
2010 World Cup
Cup
final,
final, nice, yeah.
And then Denmark, Portugal.
which is full of precedents. Okay, did you have a nice weekend though, Jules?
I had a very good weekend, yeah. My moment of the weekend was the 80th anniversary of Lille on Sunday, yeah. They celebrated with loads of former players on the pitch, flags, everything. 50,000 people at the stadium, and they beat Rennes. Georges Sampaoli Rennes 1-0. So not
Was
the
that his
greatest of games.
first game in
Yeah,
charge?
it's not good. I mean, I'm not sure if he's still good enough anyway himself, but his team just outside of the relegation zone, they're not playing well. And for Lille, just playing 50% of their ability was enough for the win. But it was just a good atmosphere, and they wanted to celebrate their birthday with a win, and they did, and they fought in the table. So yeah,
Very nice. Some funny teams down at the bottom of the French table. Nantes, for example.
yeah, massive
Big
crisis
pitch invasions.
Yeah.
Disgruntled fans. All right. We've kind of gone into moment of the week territory, haven't we? Are you happy with yours, James? Anything else you want to add, or pizza in New York?
I mean,
From a football perspective,
Yeah, you know your real job,
People
like
love
as
that.
in like what you're here for, not just talk
we
about
can just go
food.
straight because of polls. Poll has sent us one. We're going to be hearing from Poll in a
okay,
second.
let's run a poll.
Here's Poll's moment of the week.
Paul, a moment of the weekend for you. Moment of the weekend. I'm gonna go to the Las Palmas Mallorca game. I don't know if you saw that ending of the game. It was a 2-2 on the injury time. Las Palmas managed to equalize a 2-goal lead from Real Mallorca. And in the last minute of the game, we could see how Berat Murici missed a clear chance. He missed a clear chance. And Jaime Mata, Las Palmas player, just decided to make fun of him, laugh him at his face. And Berat Murici, the Real Mallorca striker, just replied by showing the middle finger. He just showed out the middle finger. which was an action, and I just remind you, that was the injury time of the game with the 2-2 draw. So the VAR just basically called the referee into watching it. So the referee just was hanging onto his ear because someone was speaking to him. And yeah, basically on the audio that were released just after the game, we could hear how the VAR told the referee, look, there was a lack of respect from Vedat Murici here to Jaime Mata. You should check it because that's a potential red card offense. So basically the referee goes to the VAR monitor. He saw Murici showing the middle finger to Jaime Mata, who previously had made fun of him just for the chance that he missed. So the decision of the referee here was to send off Vedat Murici for the middle finger and then to punish Jaime Mata, showing off, by calling an indirect free kick inside the box of Las Palmas. And yeah, Real Mallorca had an indirect free kick inside of the box just to win the game in the last minute of the injury time. And guess what? Johan Mojica scored that indirect free kick and Real Mallorca got the win.
Wow.
3 to win. It was a dramatic end, and possibly the best red card that Vedat Murici has seen in his whole career.
Extraordinary. No laughing, Mata. Certainly from Las Palmas' point of view. Excellent. More from Paul very shortly. Only in La Liga. Now, it's match day 5 of the Champions League. To be fair, some of these games may be underway by the time you hear this, because there's early games on the Tuesday, and it is now Tuesday. But later on, Tuesday night, you've got Bayern against PSG, that rematch of the 2020 final. Woof. Also, 17th against 25th. Wow. There's Sporting Arsenal, Sporting with their new boss, João Pereira. That's right, he previously managed their under-23s. He started well, yes. A 6-0 victory in the Cup against Amarante. Also on Tuesday, you got Barcelona against the unbeaten Brest. We're going to ask you about that game, Jules, later. And Man City, Feyenoord, and Inter against RB Leipzig. In fact, the Tuesday sees the Italian sides with easy fixtures. They're all taking on teams who haven't got a single point yet. Slovan Bratislava for Milan, Atalanta against Young Boys, and Inter against the disastrous RB Leipzig. Wednesday,
You've forgotten about Bologna, haven't you?
Well, they play on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah, they're up against 80-year-old Lille.
They are.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Yeah. Also on Wednesday, Villa host Juventus in that long-awaited rematch of the European Cup quarterfinals from 1983. And the surprising Monaco, who are currently third, take on Benfica. Good knowledge.
Yeah.
And at Anfield, you got league-leading Liverpool taking on Real Madrid. Real, who are remarkably down in 18th place, 18th, and won't have Vinicius Jr. Let's hear more about that game to kick things off today with Paul Balouse. Paul, you're back ahead of a big week for Spanish sides, not least Real Madrid with their trip to Anfield to take on Liverpool. Huge game this for Real Madrid after they got beaten at home last time by Milan in Champions League, currently lying down in 18th place in the newfangled format.
Yeah, they have a lot at stake, and they are going to miss Vinicius Jr. Because he's had an injury. He picked up an injury against Leganés on the weekend, and he's going to miss the game at Anfield, which is crucial for Real Madrid, not just to keep their hopes alive. I think that getting into the top 8 of the group stage, it's going to be difficult for them at this point. But yeah, they just cannot afford to lose more games just to not get into trouble. While Liverpool, we know the story, they are in top form, they are top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League, and I'm sure that they are going to try not to miss in a game where possibly I'm not sure that they are going to find better moments to face Real Madrid, because Vinicius is not there, Eder Militao is not there, Rodrigo is not going to be there, Tchouaméni is not going to be there, so plenty of absences for Real Madrid there in a big game. But I think that Real Madrid are possibly more dangerous when they have been, when they struggle. So let's see. I wouldn't put all my money towards Liverpool in here.
Okay, they also have a terrible record against Real Madrid. You have to go all the way back to 2009 for the last time they managed to beat Real in the Champions League. Along the way, they've lost a couple of Champions League finals. There's been all sorts of other games as well. Who will be coming in for the absent Vinicius Jr.?
I think it's going to be a matter of playing Arda Güler or of playing Brahim Diaz maybe. And I think that this is going to allow, in a way, to play Mbappe more in a left-hand side role and possibly Jude Bellingham more as a false striker or a crusher into the box, which is where he excelled last season for Real Madrid. So, in a way, and don't get me wrong in that, but I think that Real Madrid has a chance to find a better balance in the team without the two monsters that they had in front in Mbappe and Vinicius. Let's see how they cope with that.
Bellingham indeed scoring in that crashing into the box type role this weekend against Leganés, a game which saw Mbappe break his scoring drought with a pair of goals, one of which was the first time that Vinicius had ever set him up for a scoring strike. And Vinicius laid him on with another brilliant pass later on, which he failed to convert. But still, what a time for Vinicius to then go off injured.
Yeah. Not a great timing for Real Madrid, who are struggling, as I was saying, with a lot of injuries. As I'm saying that they have a chance to find a better balance, it's not a good time now to miss Vinicius. Also because Vinicius wants to respond and feels like he wants to vindicate himself after this Ballon d'Or saga that we also like a few weeks ago. Let's see how Real Madrid copes with it. I think that Arda Güler was excellent against Leganés. He's one of the names that was off the radar, but he was brilliant. Jude Bellingham, as I was saying, he's been in top form over the past few weeks. We saw how he played in the international break, but I think that even before that, the way that he played didn't tally with the numbers that he had because he hadn't been scoring for a while, but he was the engine of that midfield. And I think that now this is paying him back with the goals and the assist and the involvement that many of us expect from a player like Bellingham.
Sounds like a tough game for Real Madrid then on Wednesday, whatever the recent precedents between those two sides. In La Liga, meantime, they've now narrowed the gap to Barcelona on top. To 4 points again. And they have a game in hand as well. Barcelona this weekend looked like they were home and dried. No, they were about 15 minutes to go, 2-0 up against Celta Vigo. And then everything went very wrong.
Yep. They didn't play well at all in all game. Hansi Flick after the game said that even despite the 2-0 lead in the first 70 minutes, he wasn't happy with how the team played. And then there was a sense of Barca getting too comfortable. They just lost focus. Jules Koundé committed an awful mistake on the back just to give away a goal. Then Marcos Alonso also got sent off in a way that, he's young and inexperienced, but if you play at the top flight in football, you should not commit that sort of offense to get sent off. And there was this feeling of lack of experience and focus, but for what we've heard, Flick was quite critical with the dressing room behind the scenes. He had a big and heated team talk after the game, just warning players not to get too comfortable because that's a long season, and as much as they started really well and impressing everyone, that can mean nothing if they don't prove themselves again. And this game that they have against Brest in the Champions League now is going to be sort of a chance for them just to prove that this can be a turning point, that they received the message, and that Barcelona can be again back in that good form that impressed all the continent in the first weeks of the season.
Absolutely. In La Liga, they have dropped 5 points now in their last two matches. But in the Champions League, when you talk about learning lessons, they started off with a bit of a wobble, that defeat to Monaco. But since then, three straight victories, scoring 14 goals across those games. Admittedly, two of them were against Young Boys and Red Star Belgrade, but Bayern Munich absolutely hammered by them 4-1. So lots of positives for Hansi Flick as they take on Brest. Lamine Yamal won't be one of them, we understand, though.
Yep, he won't be able to play. He picked up an injury in the last Champions League game against Red Star Belgrade, and he still hasn't recovered from it. Barca expects him to be ready to play on the weekend against Las Palmas. But now in the Champions League, Barca is not going to be able to count on Lamine Yamal, which funnily enough, there's a stat that Barca has lost every game in La Liga in which Lamine Yamal has not started. Let's see what happens in the Champions League. I think that Barcelona's problems in the last couple of weeks are more football related than not just focused on Lamine Yamal, and they have to improve like as a unit. But it's quite significant that a 17-year-old, in a way, has become such important in a team like Barcelona.
The other Champions League games involving Spanish sides, Atletico Madrid, who had a slightly fortuitous victory at the weekend against Alaves. Very, very questionable handball penalty, kind of paving the way for their comeback there. We'll be taking on Sparta Prague away. They're coming off a famous victory, of course, against Paris Saint-Germain in Paris, but they don't traditionally do too well on the road. You've also got Girona up against Sturm Graz. But some other stories from La Liga, if we could, one of which is the Basque derby, which Athletic Club de Bilbao won 1-0 against Real Sociedad. How was it, Paul?
It was I wouldn't say that it was the best Basque derby. I think it was a really intense game, but not really brilliant, really sparkling. Athletic Club was the better team. They deserved the win. I think that Nico Williams was really good. Oyan Sunset, good talent from Athletic Club as well, scored the winner. And Real Sociedad didn't really show up. The first half, it was quite surprising to see after their really good performance against Barcelona. They defeated Barcelona in the previous game week of La Liga, and then they go to San Mamés to the Basque Derby, and as I was saying, they just didn't show up. Possibly the biggest talking point in Real Sociedad is what happened after the game, because Imanol, the manager, was quite critical about how the players played. He said that if it was up to him by halftime, he would have changed the whole team. Because they weren't performing as he expected. And then on the mix zone, Mikel Oyarzabal, the club's captain, he basically questioned the manager. He said that when they have to assess all the approach and the mistakes that they have committed, they all have to be self-critical, starting from the manager and from all the point of view. So it's quite intriguing what's going on behind the scenes. But for now, all the bragging rights are staying in Bilbao because they have won the last 4 Basque derbies in San Mamés. They have the right to be proud of that, and just to be proud of that win that was quite deserved, as we said.
Absolutely. If it's okay for a manager to say after the game that he would have changed all the players, surely it's all right for the players to say they would have changed the manager as
absolutely.
well. Just saying. Athletic Club currently lying 5th, only 2 points off the top 4, so what a season they're having. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was the very moving scenes ahead of Valencia's game with Real Betis at the Mestalla this weekend. The first game that they'd played Valencia since back at the end of October the 27th. 2 days later, there were the terrible floods that sparked one of the worst natural disasters in recent history for Spain, with over 200 people losing their lives. And those who perished and those who contributed so much to the rescue efforts and the efforts to try and get things back to something like normal life, commemorated ahead of this game against Real Betis at the weekend.
It was breathtaking just to watch the scenes, just the silence. It was one of that moments that just witnessing the silence and the faces of the people understand, you can just understand what's going on and the magnitude of the tragedy, as you were saying. I also say that it was a powerful display from Valencia, which is a team that has a lot of academy players and homegrown players, players who have been affected in their hometowns with their families by this disaster. It comes to mind, to my mind, the young centre-back Jarek Graskowski, which is one of the most promising players that Valencia has, and his family lives in one of the towns that was affected by the floods, and he had to help with everything. Just to go back to action and to win in a powerful display, scoring 4 goals against Real Betis, it was a powerful message. I think that the whole atmosphere that was created in the stadium helped them a lot, because we know that the Valencia's stadium, Mestalla, it's quite of a dramatic atmosphere, always with really demanding fans and everything. But I think that now, everyone in Valencia was pushing towards one direction, knowing that their focus is possibly not the field issues, but whatever happens on the pitch is going to help them to be happier, to just to go through all the situation. And that was really powerful and really nice to witness from La Liga in this weekend.
Paul, thank you so much for that. Enjoy your travels over the next few days, and we'll catch up with you next week.
I'll speak next week.
Serie A, James. So exciting at the top of the table. Napoli are a point clear of 4 teams: Atalanta, Inter, Fiorentina and Lazio. We had 2 really big fixtures in round 9, neither of which I think really lived up to the billing. Should we just kind of deal with those first of all?
In those 2 games,
only 1 goal. Yeah. It came down in Naples as Napoli took on Roma, with Romelu Lukaku ruining Ranieri's Roman return.
Yeah, against his old club, which again I think, look, there were justifiable reasons for not making Lukaku's move permanent from Chelsea to Roma. But still, at a time when there's so much criticism of Roma's management, to see a player you let go score against you again, which kind of also happened in the defeat to Fiorentina when Bove scored. It's like, humiliation. So.
We'll talk more about Fiorentina shortly, because they continue their incredible run. But Napoli, with that victory, just ahead of that pack of teams. Milan and Juve are not in that quartet of sides, just behind them. How would you characterise, what word would you use for their 0-0 draw at San Siro Saturday?
Amnesia?
Forgettable, right. There were whistles and boos at the final whistle.
Yeah, would you have booed like Paulo Fonseca would have if he didn't understand? You would have booed or not?
So, you can look at where Milan are in the table and say, this guy should be doing better, Paulo Fonseca. But he's been really ballsy since he's been at the club, because he keeps dropping Leao. He dropped Theo Hernandez before, and after this game he basically says that was the most boring game I've ever witnessed as a coach. Right. He was right. I applaud the honesty, and he sort of had another go at his players, whether that's sort of abdicating responsibility for playing 4 central midfield players and then barely getting into the Juventus box. I don't know, but he was having a go at them for not taking the initiative, not going into 1v1 situations and trying to break down the game. But I like how honest Paulo is. I mean, it's probably quite hard for the players to swallow. But yeah, dreadful game. Not really all that surprising when you look at the lineup. So I mentioned that Milan midfield where you've got Yunus Musa playing as a sort of right winger, even though he's a midfield player. You've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek coming into the 11, and then you've got Juventus who are playing Weston McKennie as a false 9. I think there are 8 central midfield players on the pitch out of 20 outfield players. It's no wonder no one got into the box. Fewest touches in the penalty area of any game in Serie A this season. And whereas Thiago Motta does what Thiago Motta does, which is after the game say everything's fine, liked what my players did, lots of positives. It was actually refreshing for Paulo Fonseca to kind of agree with the fans in the stands that it was awful. Even though he has subsequently come out in his pre-match press conference for this Slovan Bratislava game saying, look, you get a draw against Juventus these days and it's like you've lost. You need to be a little bit more measured in your judgment of what my team is doing.
Maybe it's partly as well because of the swashbuckling style they showed at the Bernabeu in their last Champions League match when they won away at Real Madrid, and since then there's been the rocambolesco draw with Cagliari, and then this extremely disappointing result. Maybe that's informed.
No, you are right, because I think in big games they've turned it on and they've been exciting. You think not only about the Real Madrid game, but against Inter when they beat Inter in the derby for the first time after 6 consecutive defeats. But Juventus are mind-numbing, aren't they? I mean, people complained about Allegri, but at least Allegri would kind of hoof it and play Route 1, whereas this is just like pass it, and go nowhere.
Not much happened there.
And like Dusan Vlahovic was left out of the team, ostensibly because he had an injury, although he had given some constructive criticism of Juventus' style of play while on international duty with Serbia, saying, it's actually quite nice when I come with my national team because I get to play with another striker in Alexander Mitrovic, and I've got support and all this sort of thing. It's different when I'm playing for Juventus, and then finds himself not in his team for one of the biggest games of the season.
Officially, he's
injured,
a muscle injury, no?
Officially, he's got a muscle injury. I'm not going to doubt the Juventus medical department. Cup miners played with 38-degree fever and all this sort of stuff. But some curious choices going on at Juventus, like Douglas Luiz. You'd expect this Villa game, his homecoming. Instead, the guy just can't get any minutes. And when he does get minutes, he does give penalties away and makes stupid decisions. But at the same time, they invested, 50 million? Unless you kind of write that 50 million off because they sent Ealing Jr. and Baraneke the other way in what felt like a really old school Juventus, swapsies deal. But it's just he was the big signing along with Cup Miners. He arrived very early in the transfer window. He's not playing. The other Brazilians aren't playing either, because Bremer's injured. Danilo, the captain of the team, barely ever plays. And I think, might go to Napoli in January. And so, Juventus. I think it's one thing for Motta to coach and manage a team of individuals, team of personalities in the way that he did at Bologna, where a lot of no-name guys, with all due respect to the great Lewis Ferguson. Whereas at Juve, you've got Danilo, who was captain of Brazil at one stage. You've got Vlahovic, 70 million striker. You've got you've got higher profile guys who are. They keep getting a lot of injuries at Juve. You're like, what are you doing in training? You're running these guys into the ground. What's going on?
What do you think is going to happen at Villa on Wednesday night?
Well, I'm in the TNT studio for this game, and I think I'm actually relieved to be in the TNT studio for it rather than at that game, because Juventus have been just so boring to watch over the last few weeks. And I was quite game for this change of management on the basis that we might see quote-unquote better football at Juve. And instead, it's the same but different in that it's a lot more possession, but they are negative, I think, in possession a lot of the time, which is just passing it around with no penetration. So there's been a lot of talk this week about they just need to get Xerxes in. He's not really making an impact at United, played really well under Motta at Bologna. Why don't you get him on loan in January? But I'm not sure that's the solution. I don't think you can just transplant Bologna into Juventus. I don't think it's that easy. So, and the thing is with Juve, James, everyone else is running away with all these big winning streaks. Atalanta, 7 straight wins. Fiorentina, 7 straight wins. Lazio, 9 wins out of 13 games. If you're drawing all of these games, which Juventus are doing, you are gonna get left behind.
Currently in 6th spot. Jules?
I was saying Milan Skriniar, there's discussions between PSG and Juventus for him in January. And again, I know they lost Bremer and I know they probably need a defender, but that would not be, I thought, where the first signing in January would come from, because I think there's, like James said, other positions that are more important for them to fulfill maybe than another centre-back. But
anyway, they're a bit boring, Juve, so let's move on. A quick word, actually. What do you think about Roma's chances after that fairly disappointing performance? Admittedly, Ranieri's first game in charge, but their 5th defeat in their last 6 games away in Naples, and they're taking on Tottenham on Thursday. Ooh.
Yeah, I am going to this one.
Yeah. That should be fun.
Well, it should be fun if you don't watch Roma. Look, part of me thinks because Spurs are the most unpredictable team in the league and they veer from one extreme to the other, that in this game, maybe, Roma actually do something. But again, they played 4-4-2 at the weekend because, Ranieri's, I'm not going to say a dinosaur, but like Ranieri, whenever he comes in, he's like, I'm going to reteach you the alphabet of football. So let's start basic, 4-4-2. And
going to build the foundations before we decorate the walls, no?
Yeah. But players playing out of position, started with a back four against Napoli at the weekend, changed to a back three, immediately conceded, and sort of left out Hummels, and then Hummels comes on and doesn't want to score another own goal, so he basically leaves. He could have stopped that cross coming in for Lukaku.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Lukaku, I thought, wow, Lukaku moving at pace and beating a defender. Oh, it's
Exactly.
So left Hummels out of the starting 11, left Dybala out of the starting 11, and there was quite an interesting thing after the game where Dybala comes on for a few minutes and then basically does the warm down with the guys who didn't play at the end of the game, visibly in front of the DAZN TV cameras, DAZN being the rights holder in Italy, and they were looking over their shoulder going, what's he trying to do here? Is he basically making sure his muscles are still warm, he's not going to have a problem on the plane back, or is he trying to show everybody that he's fit and should be playing? So he was left out. Soulé, who they signed for like 25 million in the summer, still can't get in the team, even though he scored 11 goals on a crap Frosinone side last year. And so it's like, well, are these players, these signings that your young French dude Gisolfi made in the summer, really all that bad? Or so Spurs should win this game.
Okay,
they should.
Let's try and lift the mood a little bit.
No.
As we turn to Florence and the incredible Fiorentina, as you mentioned, 7 wins in a row now, the latest being that 2-0 victory at Como with goals from Adli and, of course,
I can be negative about Como if you want.
Well, that's true. That's true. But also, David De Gea.
That double save, man, is something else.
Double or triple?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
How many clean sheets has he had? Is it 5 or something in 7 games?
Well, I mean, where he really kind of began to come to the fore was in that Milan win, where he saved 2 penalties. But, I mean, when they started the season, he wasn't starting in goal. That was this guy, Terracciano, who played most of last year. And it's really interesting. If you look at when Roma sacked Daniele De Rossi, I think it was match day 3 or 4, and they were on 3 or 4 points. And Fiorentina were on the same. And Roma chose to sack De Rossi. Fiorentina basically stuck with Palladino, even though he'd complained during the transfer window that they needed to get players in. And there were a few of the fans that were kind of undecided as to whether he was the right appointment or not. And they've won pretty much every game since then. And he changed system. So he was this Gasperini disciple who only played 3-4-2-1. And that didn't suit the players. So young manager adapted, started playing with a back four, changed how they mark from man-to-man to zonal, dropped some of the senior players, Biraghi, brought in David De Gea. And ever since then, they've been unstoppable. Best start to the season since Luca Toni was at the club, 05-06.
You know who they're playing next week? Inter. They host Inter, who are up there with them, 1 point behind Napoli. Inter, who this weekend beat Verona 5-0, scoring all 5 goals in the first half. That's the highest scoring half of football they've had away from home in 60 years. If you want a particularly niche stat. But Inter, I mean...
And they rested a load of players in this game as well.
True.
Apart from Marcus Thuram.
Yeah, he scored again.
Thuram, who gave kind of a clinic on how to go around the goalkeeper twice. Both centre-backs scored as well. Bissek did right.
Bissek goal was extraordinary.
And Joaquin Correa. I didn't even know he still played football.
Yeah, first goals in 2 years.
Really?
He was terrible at Marseille last season.
Yeah.
Terrible.
The Bissek goal caught my eye, though, as I'm sure most people's, because he's falling over. I mean, it's fortuitous, isn't it? Or is that some extraordinary bit of skill?
Yeah, he has to improvise. I don't think he's necessarily thinking about it. He's falling over and then he's like, oh, the ball's there. What do I do?
Stabs it. And it happens to just fly up in this perfect...
Perfect
anyway.
and kind of slightly weird trajectory. But yeah, no, it was... Inter just... as I've said before, they're capable of playing 20-25 minutes of just unplayable football, which no one can match in Serie A. And often they've not scored the second, third goal. That happened, for example, against Milan in the derby, where they could have had the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th goal, and they let Juventus back in. Whereas in this, they scored all 5 goals in 45 minutes.
They're also one of 2 teams in the Champions League that have yet to concede a goal.
Yeah.
The other one being Atalanta, who are up against, who they got, Young Boys. They've just beaten Parma 3-1 at the weekend. Parma goal was very nice, actually.
Cancellieri.
Yeah.
The Chancellor.
And I was going to mention as well, big Patrick Vieira.
Yeah.
In at Genoa. That was a surprise, them bidding Gilardino suddenly last week.
Well, yeah, particularly considering some of the other coaches who already lost their jobs and some of the coaches who've kept their jobs down the bottom as well. And I think the owners had maybe just got a little bit fed up. I mean, the owners are 777, you know, who are in administration in the US. Obviously tried to take over Everton, couldn't do it. So there should be a lot of concern about how they run Genoa, and Genoa's kind of as a going concern, I suppose, until that gets resolved. But yeah, Gilla had been complaining that they'd sold Retegui to Atalanta, current top scorer in Serie A, who scored at the weekend. They sold Gudmundsson, like this Icelandic Dybala kind of guy, and they let Dragozin go to Spurs last January. So like the guy was dealt a really rough hand, and they binned him off just after they signed Balotelli on a free transfer, even though Balotelli had kind of fallen out with Vieira at Nice. So nice joined up thinking there. Yeah. They got a 2-2 draw for the weekend.
At home to Cagliari.
They led until late as well. They could have won that. I don't think they deserved to win it, but they were in the lead.
Yeah.
Well, they're currently 1 point off the bottom three, which reads Como, Monza, and poor old Venezia. Even teams like Roma, not that far off. Roma are in 12th place right now, 3 points above the bottom
worst
three.
start since 1978.
Is it?
When they finished, I think, something like 12th or 13th out of 16 teams.
Wow.
But I mean, before we move on to Liga, we should say that because there are all these teams really close at the top, there are people talking about Atalanta as being like Samp back in 91.
90s,
because that Samp team came off 7 or 8 years of Mancini, Vialli playing together and reaching Cup Winners' Cup finals and Coppa Italia finals and winning the kind of so-called minor trophies, and then having this kind of Scudetto push. And there's a feeling that, okay, Atalanta aren't the same team that they've always been over the last 7 or 8 years. There is no Mancini and Vialli there, but the club is sort of in that mature stage where they really could do it this time. I mean, they've scored 34 goals in 13 games. Lookman has been outstanding since he stopped holding out for his move to PSG. And they have a big game at the weekend. Roma. I say it's a big game. It's not a big game anymore.
Woof.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Very good. As you say, Liga awaits. And also, next up, the Bundesliga with Seb Stafford-Bloor.
Seb.
Hi, Jimbo. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. You're all packed and ready to go for Tuesday night's big game at the Allianz Arena. Woohoo! It's a rematch of the 2020 Champions League final, don't you know?
It sure is. So much seems to have changed between now and then. It feels like a decade ago. Bayern feel in a really interesting place. So winners 3-0 over Augsburg on Friday night. Harry Kane hat-trick and fastest player ever to 50 Bundesliga goals. Beat Erling Haaland's previous record by I think about 7 games, Jimbo. Wow. So that's pretty impressive. And yet these games are interesting. I mean, from a German media perspective, they almost pass without comment. And Vincent Kompany's side ticking along really nicely in the Bundesliga. Uli Hoeneß has already guaranteed the championship, guaranteed a title win. It's not even December, but he's promised that to his supporters. And heading to this feels like another one of those games in which we can learn a little bit more about what Kompany's Bayern are actually like. So really, really interesting.
Okay, because the last time they had a reunion from that 2020 Champions League winning campaign, it was the rematch of the semi-final with Barcelona, and that didn't go so well. There was a couple of games back in this season's Champions League format. They lost 4-1 to Barca, and it exposed all sorts of issues that maybe some people like yourself, Seb, have been suspecting might be there for Bayern.
Yeah, I think you can zero in on a single issue there, Jimbo, because Bayern's coaching staff are pretty happy with the progress this season. I think the one area where they would concede there's still work to do is with their pressing. So in Kompany's system at the moment, particularly at the top of the pitch, when a team are working out of their own defensive third, there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of willingness to press. But there's not necessarily always accuracy in it. And, that's attributable to a few things. They've chopped and changed at their fullback positions in midfield. There's a little bit of a lack of familiarity. But when they come up against a team like Barcelona versus playing against Bochum, for instance, Holstein Kiel, when these issues don't necessarily get exposed, that got pretty ruthlessly exploited. And 4-1 was pretty damning. I wouldn't say a corner was turned that night, but there's definitely kind of a markation in the sort of the before and after. And Bayern have been pretty serene since, and yet there is always that caveat when they come against the higher level of opposition, against teams that are equipped technically to play through them. What are they going to look like? And that's a big ask for Tuesday night, clearly.
It is. Tuesday night, that game taking place, so it may well be underway or even finished by the time you get this, listener. So perhaps we'll move on to the fixture that Bayern have after PSG. Small matter of Borussia Dortmund.
Goodness, Jimbo Dortmund are their own little melodrama at the moment.
But they've just won six straight at home in the league, 8 out of 8.
They have, and they're really good against Freiburg. They attack really well. I mean, they almost had their own little goal of the month competition within this game. Obviously, Felix Metsch's goal was absolutely brilliant. Lovely Julian Brandt free kick. Also, look at Max Bayer's goal and his first touch for that goal. Lovely fluid bit of centre forward play. And yet, this came on a weekend where Borussia Dortmund are holding this is over now, were holding their AGM, and on the agenda for that, of course, the Rheinmetall issue. So a little bit of context. Back in June, they signed a sponsors agreement with Rheinmetall, who are a weapons manufacturer based in Dusseldorf, quite close by. And as you'd expect, that caused a lot of controversy, a lot of protest, a lot of cardboard tanks being laid out in protest outside Borussia Dortmund's HQ.
How many cardboard tanks?
I spotted 2 back in June, and I've seen 3 since the weekend. So
are these 3-dimensional tanks, or are they just?
No, they're proper. You know, if you were asked back in school when you were 8 years old to create a paper mache tank, that's what you might do.
But bigger.
You probably also wouldn't use some of the words that have been used on those tanks at school when you were 7.
Went to a rough school.
Well, yes, very much so. But interesting moment during the HM. So one of the members proposed a motion to end the Rheinmetall deal immediately. At the moment, it's due to end in 2027. The motion carried by, I think, about 65-66%, but it's advisory. So the board are not compelled to do anything with that information, but Aki Vatska has said that they're going to poll the rest of the members. So not every member was obviously physically at the AGM and unable to vote. So they're going to broaden this out, and this is underway. So nothing's going to happen immediately, but the retaliation against Rheinmetall is very, very real now. And this is a kind of an ongoing issue. And so this is the shame of it, because to me, I think maybe this was as conclusive a win as Nura Sahin has had, certainly since that Bochum game a month and a half ago. And yet the story coming out of the weekend is probably not that. And it's probably not yet what they can expect to do against Bayern next weekend either. And that's interesting, because you mentioned their home record. And you mentioned, we've talked about the kind of their firepower, and one of the accusations made against this side is can't do anything without the Westfalenstadion, which is a way of saying whenever you're away from your own supporters, you lose, percentage of your power, of your ability to control and win games. And no sterner test than Bayern coming in, who, again, it really does look like they've got a couple more gears to get into. So it's week of foreboding for Dortmund, potentially.
Yeah, although it could be the week that sets them back on track to claw back some positions. They're currently laid down in 5th, a full 10 points back from Bayern Munich. Bayern Leverkusen got only their 2nd win of their last 7 games in a crazy 5-2 victory over Heidenheim. Heidenheim actually took the lead, were 2-0 up after 21 minutes, but a hat-trick for Patrick Schick, some very nice goals in there, and Granit Xhaka's was a classic slice of Xhaka, if you will, saw them on their way to, as I say, a rare victory for the reigning Bundesliga champions, who'll be hosting Salzburg in the Champions League on Tuesday. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coin, RB Leipzig's collapse continues, still pointless in the Champions League. Marco Rosa's side, and now that form is beginning to enter their domestic campaign as well. 2 defeats in their last 3. the most recent coming at struggling Hoffenheim, who've had to usher in a new manager and promptly beat Leipzig 4-3, Seb.
Yeah, first game in charge for Christian Eisser, who came from Sturm Graz, and a great response from his Hoffenheim team. Leipzig, last time we spoke, Jimbo, it was Marco Rose, a job security question mark. Let's remove the question mark. I mean, even by Rose's own admission, he said after the game, after the 4-3 defeat, yeah, there are stormy days coming. And he was pretty damning in his assessment of the performance too. I mean, I suppose the English version of what he said was, we were second best all over the pitch. And he was right. They were very, very poor in duels. There's a real lack of defensive intensity to them. They looked very vulnerable to transitions, which is a strange thing to say about an RB side, given what they're built to do. Really troubling times. The caveat, Jimbo, is I'm not sure what the answer is, because fundamentally, is this team demographically balanced enough to survive these moments in their season? Do they have the right parts to complement all that wonderful attacking youthful talent they have? Don't know. Is it a problem solved simply by changing a head coach? Don't know that either. Not sure what the answer is. And, Marco Rose is actually the longest serving head coach they've had. Yeah, it doesn't look great. And when you start talking about, we're about to come into a really difficult part of the season, and clouds are gathering above me. I mean, it's not it's not Churchillian, is it?
No, indeed not. It's interesting that all this fall off in domestic form is happening against the backdrop of Jurgen Klopp taking on the top job at the kind of RB network. They've got, as you say, tough games coming up. First of which will be on Wednesday night when they're up against Inter, who have yet to concede a single goal in the Champions League so far this season. That's at San Siro. RB Leipzig, on the other hand, have been conceding all sorts. They shipped 3 against Celtic, despite taking the lead in that game. They've been dropping points all over, and they've yet to pick up a single one in this campaign. Are we entering the kind of end game, do you think, for Marco Rose? Could this week spell goodbyes?
I don't think this week will spell goodbyes. There is still positivity coming from RB themselves, whether that's genuine or not. That's the noise. I think if form doesn't pick up, if there aren't at least signs that the form can recover before the winter break, I mean, that's a blessing and a curse for Bundesliga coaches, isn't it? Because it's enough time whereby you can reset as an organisation, bring somebody else in ahead of the January transfer period too. So I think he's got a couple of weeks, but the nose is pointing down, Jumbo, definitely, and it needs that needs changing sooner rather than later. And even if they don't beat Inter, a good performance against Inter, like the one they gave against Atletico Madrid, was probably their best Champions League performance, I think. If they can return to that, that's a building block. I think that's where they are. That's how low this has sunk at the moment, that they're really in that sort of territory right now.
All right, well, we look forward to seeing what happens in that game and the other Bundesliga sides in action. Stuttgart, who are away at Zvezda, and Borussia Dortmund, who will be on their travels ahead of the Klassiker, as it's not really called, in Zagreb. Anyway, Seb, many, many thanks. Enjoy your trip to the Allianz Arena, and we'll catch up with you next week. Julian Orange is ready to take us through the wild and wonderful world of Ligue 1. Jules, do you want to start with the Ligue 1 or with how important that game on Wednesday? No, Tuesday. Tuesday is for PSG today, as we record.
Yeah, let's start there maybe.
Let's start now or never. Is it fair to say that? A
little bit. I mean, they will still have 3 more games, so I guess 9 points. 1 against City, and then
easy then.
City. Everybody beats City nowadays. Salzburg, everybody beats Salzburg, even in Austria, and then Stuttgart, you just never know. They can play very well or they cannot play very well. So, but today in Munich tonight is the one, I think, where
Honigstein-Laurent's derby.
I know it is, and I think there's a lot of things that this PSG team can do to hurt Bayern and the high line, and I think we might see Dembele as a number 9 for that reason. And them using Barcola a lot and runners from midfield like Zaire Emery or Joe Neves, who are both in great form. But I also think that the lack of efficiency up front that we've seen through this whole campaign, because they should have beaten PSV and Atletico Madrid quite comfortably and they didn't, is a problem in a game like that, because you won't have many chances, that's for sure, I think. And if you don't take them, you struggle, because I think Bayern are going to have a siege on your goal and going to attack a lot. And I think if PSG can deal with the width quite well, because that's what Kimmich does a lot, those diagonals to the opposition winger all the time, if they can prevent the crosses from coming or defending well on crosses from Marquinhos, Pacho, and then whoever the goalkeeper is, whether that's Safonov or Donnarumma. But neither of them, I think, are great on crosses, so that's a bit of a worry too. But really, Bayern should be the favourite simply because they're home and because they have been slightly better, not much better, but slightly better in the Champions League than PSG.
To what extent does Barcelona and other of the teams that had a bit of a grudge with Bayern, what they did to the Bavarians a month ago, to what extent does that give PSG a model?
Yeah, no, I think it's exactly that. The only
high offside line.
Or certainly, I mean, you can be quite compact, but they will play super high anyway. That's what they do. They play in your own half when they, especially at home. So this is where I think the key is, and for Vitinha to find those space in behind and the runs in behind. For Dembélé, I think to come short, because he doesn't really run in behind. It's more you give him the ball to his feet and then he will go 1v1 against you. Whereas I think if you play him as a false nine, he can free a lot of space for more runners if you want. Even a Colomwani, I don't think would be a bad idea. He won't start him because he hates him. But I think Luis Enrique could be very inspired to start him in a game like that, because that's what he does really well. He runs in behind a lot. But we see, I think it's quite a fascinating one. My heart is going to beat a lot because you could also get spanked by Bayern 3-0 really. But I think it would be quite fascinating tactically to see what Luis Enrique does. And Vincent Kompany was really kind to PSG. So like, this is a really good team. I know it's not happening for them in the Champions League and people are criticizing them, but it's a really good team.
Because you just learned from Pep.
Yeah, no, maybe. And maybe it's just between managers you're kind to each other kind of thing, you know.
Maybe
from
so.
Mourinho, but yeah, it'd be good.
That'll be left on the sidelines tonight when the whistle blows.
Yeah.
Are you on TNT tonight, Jules?
I am on the Gold Show.
Yeah. So we're going to be able to experience you experiencing this game.
Yeah, you've never seen that before.
Unless
I miss it.
You chose not to. Just tune in for the whole game. I think it sounds like the game of the evening.
Yeah,
I miss Jules reaching for my knee or my thigh during these PSG tormenting games.
I know, they torment me a lot.
So Bayern on a 6-game winning run coming into this game, but PSG are on a brilliant run in La Ligue, in Ligue 1.
In le championnat, yeah.
Oui.
L'Hexagon.
Oui. 3-0 over Toulouse on Friday. Oh, what a lovely goal from Jean Neves.
Oh, amazing. He's been great.
Jean Neves.
Jean Neves. And then he played at left back too for the second half, which was good. PSG gave up a few chances, and I think the expected goal to Toulouse is higher than PSG at the Parc des Princes, which is very rare. But they didn't take their chances, and PSG scored 2 more a bit late. But
if only their name was XG and not Toulouse.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's another win. It's still a 6-point gap with Monaco.
6 points.
Also won, and who play Marseille, so second v third on Sunday night.
Yeah.
So another opportunity maybe for PSG to make even more ground over one of them too, because they play Nantes, who's at the bottom of the table and not good. So yeah. But this is the two different sides of this PSG team. Really good in the league, too good for the league, really.
Right. And
so far, not good enough in the Champions League.
Okay, Monaco last weekend playing the team that's the direct opposite of that, Brest, who are in 4th spot in the Champions League, and probably, but very much not in Ligue 1.
Struggling,
yeah. So that was Brest did well in this game, no? 3-2.
Yeah, it was not bad. But Monaco were always better. You could see they were always much better. Mahrez Hakliouche, the young winger, who is so good and so promising, and should be called up very soon by Deschamps, unless he chooses to play for another country, which is always possible. But yeah, outstanding talent. Not just because
does he have the choice of them all?
He has a choice. I also, as a Paris-born and bred kid, he's obviously very special.
What about Ben Seguir and his performance?
Yeah, Ben Seguir was very good, and one plays on the right, one plays on the left. Ben Seguir has chosen to play for Tunisia, for example, and not for France. But 2 outstanding talents. And I guess Monaco played Benfica. We said it, and Henry Maria scored a hat-trick and a lovely overhead kick at the weekend in the cup.
What a goal.
Nice at 36. But I think this Monaco team have a lot of really, really good things at the moment to beat Benfica and continue their incredible start. They're unbeaten in this Champions League. So
that would be remarkable. Brest taking on Barcelona.
Yeah.
Kryptonite, the French teams for Barcelona. They lost to Monaco.
Yeah,
that's true.
Lost
Who
to
play in
PSG
red and
last
white.
season.
You know.
Yeah.
Brest who've lost Pierre Lees-Melou.
Yeah.
Lees-Melou. Yeah.
Norwich legend, Pierre Lees-Melou.
Brest who lost Pierre Lees-Melou.
Yeah, their playmaker. Yeah.
So that's
bad.
That's bad.
It's really bad. He's so good. Has been so good for them. They're taking 5,000 fans to the Montjuic Stadium. To Barcelona, which they've never had so many away fans going to a single game. This is incredible for them.
Right.
It is. They will have Real Madrid as well at I think the last game of the Champions League at home. But this is the biggest really game of their history. This is incredible for them to go and play Barcelona, even if it's not at the Camp Nou, but it's still in the Champions League. I think they can't really quite believe that this is happening.
Right.
And I think that's why also their form in the league has been so poor, is because they just keep, as we said, I think in the last show, they just keep thinking about the Champions League. They live for that. Those players who've never played in that competition before will probably never play again. So this is it really. So I don't think they care too much about the league as long as they stay up. It's all about those emotions in the Champions League.
They're 3 points above the bottom 3 at the moment, but Champions League. They helped Bayer Leverkusen too.
Yeah, at home. And Eric Roy said yesterday, he said, we've played great before last season and even this season against top clubs, so there's no reason why we could not do it again. Okay, this is another level even without Lamine for Barcelona, but Rafinha and Lewandowski and Pedri and all of that would be very special. Lewandowski on 99 Champions League goals, by the way. Remember when he scored 2 in the last game and Hansi Flick took him off and then said, I didn't know, he just needed one more to get to the 100 mark, so I would have left him.
The third player to reach the century.
Yeah.
Who were the other 2, Jules?
Let me guess. It's more, okay, the quiz question for you and all the listeners.
Oh, yeah.
It's not so much who are the other 2, but how many goals do Cristiano and Messi have in the Champions League? Go on.
Lots.
So
James is stunned that it's Cristiano and Messi.
Cristiano and Messi.
Yeah, so Cristiano is number 1. How many goals in the Champions League? So it's more than 100, so come on, have a guess. James?
There's a lot of numbers that are
probably
more than
knows.
100. Do you know?
173.
I wanted to say 176, but I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, that's a bit high.
Okay.
It's low. That's a lot of goals.
It is a lot of goals.
So 140 for Cristiano.
Okay.
And 129 for Messi. But Lewandowski has a higher ratio goal per game than
Really?
them. So yeah, Cristiano is 0.77, Messi 0.79. Okay, Lewandowski is 0.80, so it's not too much wasted.
All right, and he's still playing in the Champions
He's still
League,
playing,
so-
and then you've
Better
got.
player, Julian is saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that Kylian then is the next one still playing in activity in that
Right.
ranking with 49, so 1 away from 50 in that Liverpool game.
Remember when it used to be like Inzaghi,
Raul.
Yeah, Raul 71.
and Sheva, and like those numbers were like, holy moly, like no one's
Already,
getting near those. And then we're talking about guys who've got almost double.
Yeah.
Right.
And Kareem, the dream, obviously stopped on 90.
Did he stop on 90? What's Erling Haaland on?
38 or something like
Really?
that. I think he's somewhere
But probably in like 11 games. That's,
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jules, you mentioned Lille before and their lovely birthday treat of beating Rennes. Anything else we should talk about?
Just two quickly
Marseille,
things.
after
Marseille,
the Zerbi meltdown last week. They did
won
get the
away.
victory this time.
Away.
3-1 against Lens.
Yeah, and with maybe a little bit of help from the referee, but still, it counts, and they're very good away from home. The best thing about the Zerbi this week in our the Zerbi focus, so they play Monaco on Sunday in the massive game, massive derby, and the players so they play Saturday. On Sunday, they were off and they got this message saying a special week next week because they're going into a retreat.
Nice, Retiro style.
Retiro style for between Tuesday to Sunday. No
Nice.
family,
No family.
just all together. The Zerbi having this commando thing. So let's see if it works on Sunday.
Where are they going?
We don't know yet. It's 2 hours away from Marseille. That's all we know. It's just like secret location.
Can't they go to that island If, the Chateau d'If or whatever.
Yeah, or maybe Corsica. You can just take the boat and cross over and go to Corsica, North Corsica. Yeah, but it's very, very Italian, obviously. You know, usually when things are not going well,
comes back with
Camp Deserbi.
Revenge.
Yeah, let's see. And the other thing is not as nice, obviously, is the trial of Paul Pogba and his friends and his brother who tried to extort money from him starts today. So on Tuesday, in Paris. So I don't think Paul will attend. And it's just, I know we talked a lot about it when it actually happened, but if you've forgotten or if you don't remember or if you were not there listening,
shame on you.
Shame on you. But his own older brother, one of the twins, plus 5 other friends he grew up with, 2 especially who were like family to him, would be in the docks, is that what you say? In the docks?
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. For trying to extort 13 million euros of him, leading him into this flat in Paris in 2022, March 2022, where he thought this is an evening between friends, maybe we play PlayStation, and next thing he knew, 2 guys with Kalashnikovs and balaclavas were pointing a gun on him saying we need the money now. And just an incredible story, which is an environment.
Did he have an Oculus on and he thought he was playing Call of Duty?
With the VR. This time was actually real on him.
We're not joking.
No, we're not. But
it's serious.
I think, unfortunately, for a lot of players, this is part of the reality of being a superstar now, especially if you grew up in a tough environment, like a lot of them
like
do.
Paris, like Julian grew up in.
Not me so much, and I don't have the same money as Paul Pogba. But
he's got more.
I don't know how much more do you want me to talk about it, because I think we should do a whole show on this.
Okay.
Considering Paul Pogba through all his life, to some of those people who have threatened him and tried to extort even more money, regularly would give it to them 5,000 euros, 10,000 euros, 50,000, 100,000 euros, even more money at times, by pure generosity, a lot, because he felt we grew up together, you're like my brothers, I want to help you, you don't have a job, you can come and help me in the house. Some of them lived with him in Turin, in Manchester. Some drove his mum everywhere for years and years for a salary that Paul was given, plus all the food and all the clothes, everything. And then for them to turn their back almost on him and try to do that, I find that incredible. But this is the reality of football today. A lot of players go through this, where people ask money all the time and you feel almost obliged to give it to them because of the relationship you have with them or their families. And now it went obviously far too far for him to be in this situation now where he feared for his life, really.
Yeah, well, best luck to him with that case. Not the probably worst case involving a family member in French justice system at the moment, but let's not.
Let's
I'm
not
not
go
reference
there.
that other one.
No, yeah.
Well, best of luck to Paul Pogba, an often misunderstood character, especially when you hear more about his backstory. Jules.
Yeah, probably a bit too nice at times, but it's hard to say no, like he says himself.
It's going to be interesting to see who he says yes to come March when he decides where he's going to be playing his football.
Well, I mean, he can say yes now because at the end of this month, because that's when his contract Juventus has been terminated. Obviously, he can't return until March, but yeah, he can certainly talk to people
and start training. From January 1st.
Very nice. Very nice. Anything else, Jules?
No, it's all good.
All right then. That's it then for another exciting Continental Totally Football show. We'll be back in a week's time with more things, lots of them. So do make sure you join us for that. Thursday, though, we'll be reviewing Tuesday and Wednesday's action in the Champions League. So why not join us for that? For now, though, many, many thanks to Paul and to Seb and Jules and James and Liam and producer Lucy and you. See you soon. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.
Welcome to the Athletic FC podcast with me, Ayo Akinwolere. I'm probably more out than in, Mo Salah said on his future after another match-winning performance. His goal means Liverpool are now 8 points clear at the top of the Premier League. So will Salah be offered a contract that will keep him at Anfield? Joining us today, we have the Athletics Liverpool writers James Pearce and also Cy Hughes as well. And later on, our data analyst Mark Carey will be dropping in to crunch the numbers on Salah's evolution. But James, let's start with you on this one. You spoke to Salah in the mix zone following Liverpool's 3-2 win at Southampton on Sunday. And the headline is that, look, Salah currently said, "I'm more out than in regarding his future." Tell us what you made of his comments, but also what more was said.
Yeah, it was a remarkable few minutes, really, because I think, as everyone will know, Mo Salah very rarely speaks to the English written media. He's played 367 games for Liverpool. I've been at the vast majority of them. I've asked him probably a few hundred times at least to stop, and probably had a few hundred polite no's. He'd only stopped twice previously yet. When I asked him on Sunday, he came straight over, and bearing in mind that the mix zone at St Mary's Stadium isn't the most hospitable of places, it's outside next to the team coach, as anyone would have seen on Sunday afternoon. It was hardly the nicest of environments in terms of the rain lashing down and the wind whipping around the south coast, yet it became abundantly clear that Mo Salah had something he wanted to get off his chest, and of course, when the conversation turned to his future, that was when he said, that he says he's yet to receive any offers to stay at the club. And as you said, the standout quote, "I'm probably more out than in." Talked about his love for the club and his love for the fans, but he said, it's not in my hands. Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, Sai, it's very rare that Salah does speak to journalists, as James has alluded to. I think third time in 7.5 years. Does that suggest that he's personally putting public pressure on Liverpool from where you're sitting?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. He only ever speaks when there's a reason to speak. Yeah. I remember the first time when he did speak to the media in the mix zone. I'm sure James was there on that occasion, and that was after he'd broken the 40-goal barrier in his first season, and he needed Bournemouth, yeah, good memory, James. And he needed some persuading to do that conversation. I think it lasted for about 3 minutes, and then he was off. Really didn't want to talk, but was sort of corralled into doing so. And then, as James mentioned, I think that the second time was after they won the Champions League in 2019, when if you're not going to speak then, you're never going to speak either. So obviously over the last couple of months he has been open on occasion after the Manchester United game, hey ho, when he's had a good performance, and people suddenly starting talking about his worth to the side again. And then obviously yesterday he played a defining role in Liverpool's victory, so I can understand why. He's perfectly entitled to play it the way he does, and sort of he often communicates sort of in the cryptic and keeps people guessing with some of the things that he says. But it's very, very clear that he to me anyway, that he's interested in staying at Liverpool. Wants an offer on the table so he can consider it. As he openly admitted to James, disappointed that offer hasn't come yet. Now, I'm sure Liverpool keen to stress that that doesn't mean that the conversations haven't been happening between him and his representative Rami Abbas. But it's December and Liverpool still haven't got an offer in front of the table, on the table for him. Now, all I would say is one thing that I've learnt with Salah, certainly with the last contract negotiation. I know we're 2 years along the line, it's slightly more complex, maybe the sort of the thinking behind people's motivations about why they might stay and why they might want to make an offer. But I know in 2022, when he signed his last contract at the start of June, Mohamed Salah and Rami Abbas were talking privately about leaving the club and what his options were. 4 weeks later, they'd signed a new contract. So things can change very quickly. But of course, it's different people behind the scenes leading these negotiations. Potentially at Liverpool, we're not quite sure who has the sign-off, but certainly Richard Hughes wasn't in position in 2022. So a lot of focus on him, I think, because to find out that he hasn't had an offer is I've got to say, I was quite surprised, really.
Yeah. I think what's interesting for me is I'm also fascinated from the fans' perspective, James. You know, there's that banner that's going around. He fires a bow now. Give Mo his dough. I mean, what is the feeling from the fans in that respect? It sounds like fans are all on side. I mean, he's their top goal scorer. He's in great shape. His stats are really, really good. You know, him speaking publicly, do we get a sense of what the fans want?
Yeah, I think certainly every fan I speak to is absolutely desperate for Liverpool to resolve this. And, you know, the idea of Mohamed Salah playing for anyone else next season is incredibly unpalatable because, his contribution this season has been nothing short of remarkable, because you go back to the back end of last season and he had a really difficult time of it, having, got injured at AFCON, struggled to get his rhythm back. He was in and out of the team actually at the back end of the season. There was the well-publicised spat with Jurgen Klopp on the touchline at West Ham. Yet from the get-go under Slot, he's looked absolutely rejuvenated. And 12 goals, 10 assists in 18 appearances in all competitions this season, a goal involvement every 65 minutes, which is by far and away his best in a season during his Liverpool career. Even in 2017-18, when of course he broke all kinds of records when he scored 44 goals in all competitions. I think it was a goal involvement every 71 minutes. So that's the level he's performing at, and I think that's clearly why he's decided the time was right to crank up the pressure. And I think a lot of fans will understand why he's done that. I think, as Simon said, I think it's important in terms of, I think a lot of people will see the headline of him saying he hasn't had an offer and think, well, what on earth are Liverpool playing at? Now, of course, it's unthinkable that in the dialogue that's been going back and forth between Richard Hughes and Rami Abbas, it's unthinkable there haven't been verbal conversations about expectations on both sides. Now, it's the nuances of it, I guess, isn't it, in terms of Salah saying he hasn't had a formal offer in terms of one that's on the table. Liverpool haven't confirmed or denied that's the case. Of course, the last thing they want is to turn this into something confrontational or adversarial, especially at a time when things are so positive on the pitch. But yeah, Liverpool fans, they'd be absolutely devastated if this is the end in terms of his final season of his career, because he's still Liverpool's most potent attacking weapon. Yes, he might be 33 next June, but you only have to look at that torso when he whipped his shirt off after scoring the winning goal at St Mary's. He's an absolute machine.
I'm glad you said it, because I was going to say he looks in great shape, man. He looks insane.
Reminds me of myself in many ways.
What are you saying, Si? It reminds you of yourself as well, yeah?
It definitely reminds me of James, I can confirm. Yeah. He's got a body like Ned Flanders. Don't be deceived by the video here. The mere act of him whipping his shirt off, I mean, I know he has done this before. He does like getting his kit off when he scores a goal, but I don't know. I'm always thinking there's a reason why he does this, and it's reminding people, he's a special looking bloke, isn't he? Whose body has never let him down, and I think this is what the big decision Liverpool have to make. Really, is he a special case? Is he different to other 32, 33-year-olds? The evidence currently is yes. I mean, we could go through all the games in the last month that he's actually had a big impact on. Liverpool have played well under Slot, but they haven't been outstanding, have they, in most of the games. They played well in phases of the game, but in a lot of these games, Salah's role in the outcome has been defining, and he's continuing to do it. It's a very hard argument to say there's going to be a major drop-off with this player, I think, because of the way he's sort of redesigned his game over a long period of time. Always finds a way to have an impact. I agree with James. I think it would be sad to see him go. I just think you take Salah back to the very beginning. I think his mere presence in the Liverpool team gave a lot of people around the club this belief in the impossible because of the sheer scale of the goals that he scored in his first season. Okay, he hasn't hit those numbers again since, but he's been remarkably consistent over such a long period of time. Now, some of the conversation will still date back to last season, the hamstring injury. I felt a bit sorry for him towards the end of last season because he was coming into a team that was expected to be going for the title. At just the time, there were 3 or 4 other players trying to get up to speed with what was going on around them. And he wasn't the only one who didn't perform to the levels that he's capable of. But he's come back and he looks sharper than ever and he's having an impact. And it's going to be a really hard argument for Liverpool to convince people that they're making the right decision. Now, I mentioned this to James before, but I think it's a point that's worth making as well. From Salah's perspective, he could go to another club potentially and might not perform anywhere near as well as he does for Liverpool. And that would maybe in FSG or in Liverpool or Richard Hughes or whoever's really responsible for this decision be the evidence that they need to say, look, we made the right decision. But I just think Mohamed Salah clearly feels a sense of place at Liverpool in terms of he's got a belief in himself, a confidence. He takes a confidence for playing for this team. And I don't think that can be overestimated, really. I think he knows that as well. I think he does know that. And that's one of the reasons why he wants to stay. So it just suits everybody, as far as I'm concerned, to try and find a solution to this. Because why would you give up on... I think the other thing that Liverpool have to consider is if he goes, he will need replacing. There's not somebody in that area of the pitch, I think, that's ready to take on that mantle. You can't replace Mohamed Salah with a young player because he's got so much experience. So Liverpool are going to have to spend a lot of money, I would imagine, in the transfer market to recreate Mohamed Salah or use a couple of players to recreate it. A couple of players means more money. So they're going to have to pay one way or the other. And there's no one really around. Well, there isn't anyone around in Europe who's delivered Salah's numbers. 20 goals minimum a season, 7 seasons on the run. He's going to be higher than that come the end of the season. So, yeah, I think there's got to be Liverpool from this position. I think have got to show a willingness to try and make it happen.
Yeah, I want to dig into the numbers a little later on, gents, but very quickly, Simon. It's interesting. I've always been fascinated by Mo Salah, the man. You know, we talk about him rarely giving interviews in general, but I've always been interested by what motivates him as a human being. You know, huge Egyptian star, global star, some might even say. And I know you've definitely written a book on Salah. You've written his biography, which is out right now, actually, called Chasing Salah. You know, you wanted to work out basically what makes him tick, and I'm sure so many people are interested in that. What lies behind that cool demeanour? What did you learn?
Quite a lot of things. It depends where you want to start, really. But I think what is most relevant to this moment in terms of, you know, what's actually going to happen from here is obviously his relationships. I was really interested to find out about his relationships within the club, but also outside the club. And the person in life that he is closest to is Rami Abbas, who's his representative. Now, I think there's a perception, you know, about Rami Abbas as being this like really hard negotiator, which I think he is. But him and Salah see each other as a business. You know, I'd be very surprised. I don't know this for certain, but I would be very surprised if Mohamed Salah decided to speak to James yesterday and it was a spontaneous decision. I think they will have spoken about the strategy of who we speak to, why we speak to them, and when this information comes out. I'd be amazed if that conversation hasn't happened. And they work together very closely. Like, Salah and Abbas are as close as family, really, now. And that's a relationship that's worked for both of them. Now, I think that there's a perception that certainly the last round of negotiations when he signed his last contract, that it was Mohamed Salah and Rami Abbas had set their stall out and it was up to Liverpool to meet those expectations. Very clear to me in my investigations that there was a willingness to compromise, you know, right throughout that process. There was a feeling towards the end, well, certainly at the end from the Salah side, when they actually got the contract in front of them, there was even a feeling that, again, it was a feeling rather than being definitive, but a feeling of, do Liverpool really want us to sign this? They were actually feeling, they actually hoped that we might not sign this because it's such a big commitment. So Liverpool had to move some distance as well. You know, that they're just as tough as Salah and Abbas is in this negotiation. And that
They're not top of Serie A, but they're the best team in Italy, I would say, and I'd say that by quite a distance. I think the title race is fascinating. You look at what Simone Inzaghi has done. He's got this group to a Champions League final in which they competed incredibly well. They were a bit unfortunate to go out to Atleti last season. They have that belief, and they have the squad, and they have the right coach to make this happen.
Leverkusen will take on Salzburg. Important that Leverkusen bounce back.
Hugely important from that 4-0 defeat at Liverpool, because that was a real shock to the system for them. Not many teams do that to them. And at the weekend, they were 2-0 down at home to Heidenheim, came back to win 5-2. Defensively, not quite as strong as they were in that double-winning season last term.
And I know you're very excited about Atalanta away at Young Boys.
Yeah, because I just love watching Atalanta. They're a terrific team. And again, an amazing squad they've put together in recent years. Here on merit after winning the Europa League last term. And they're going really well in Serie A too.
Goals as they go in from all those other matches. For full team news and previews of each match, head to championsleague.com or the official app. Atmosphere starting to build in Munich. Our focus tonight is on events in Germany. And let's hear from Bayern forward Harry Kane now. He's fully aware of the threat that tonight's opposition pose.
Paris will be a tough game for sure. I think they have a really good team, play with a lot of style and try and dominate the game with possession. Obviously, we like to do the same. We'll go at home to try and dominate the ball, to try and create chances, put them on the back foot in our pressing as well, because we want to make it as difficult as we can for the opposition, both with pressing from maybe their goal kicks, but also in the counter press when we lose the ball. And I think we've done that really well this season.
He's been in wonderful form, Kev. Talk us through how he got on Friday night.
Yeah, he was extraordinary, because it was a game where Bayern made lots of chances, dominated the game against Augsburg, as they would expect to. But Kane put away 2 penalties, ice cool as always. But his third goal to seal his hat-trick was wonderful. It was a high ball to him. He somehow leapt up like the Bundesliga logo with his leg outstretched, brought the ball down and then headed it home from close range. And that's his 7th Bundesliga hat-trick since the start of his Bundesliga career at the start of last season. And he's the fastest ever player to reach 50 Bundesliga goals. He's done it in just 43 games.
Wonderful scenes at the moment in the Fußball Arena München. What's it like when you get to this moment before a game in this wonderful stadium, Kev? What is the atmosphere like there on nights like tonight?
Yeah, it feels big. It feels like a big stage. It's a really traditional club. It's a club that has been so consistent for so long. And it is about history as much as the present, because you think of all those legends that Bayern are built on. The great Franz Beckenbauer, you think of Gerd Müller, you think of guys like Oliver Kahn, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. You know, these are huge, huge guys in European football history, not just Bayern's history. And it is an incredible fan base. They're passionate, they're loyal. It is an enormous football club, no doubt about it.
You can see, it seems almost everyone has a scarf above their head. The music dies and everyone sings. The entire stadium on its feet. It really is wonderful to watch. They're looking to record a 7th consecutive victory across all competitions. What's been so good for Bayern at the moment?
Well, I think they've managed to get that game idea from Vincent Kompany working really quickly. He made it clear what he wanted to do. He said to Dao Upamecano and Min-Jae Kim really early on, look, I'm going to ask you to do something that at times is going to be difficult, because I'm going to ask you to defend sometimes 50 metres away from your own goal. But there's a reason behind it, and I have belief in you that you can do it. Now, both of those guys had spells last season where it wasn't quite going their way. They weren't regular starters. Upamecano got sent off in a couple of games. Their confidence has been completely rebuilt, and they have been the cornerstone of this approach so far. And then you add in all of the attacking quality they have, and that's a pretty potent combination.
We're just watching images of the substitutes taking their place on the bench, and the face that you see straight away is Donnarumma. Any shock there for you, or any surprise that he doesn't start tonight?
It's always a surprise when he doesn't start, because you know, he's a European Championship winning goalkeeper. He is a top goalkeeper, very experienced for somebody of his relatively tender age. But Matvei Safonov was brought in from Krasnodar to be an alternative in that position to push Donnarumma to get game time. It's his 6th game this season, so it's not come completely out of the blue.
If we just take a look at the Paris starting lineup, there's some exciting young talent in there, isn't there? It's a slightly different philosophy for them this year.
Well, I would say it's about a collegiate approach in terms of that everyone is kind of on the same level, in the sense that you're looking at this young group. Luis Enrique, I think, has that authority as coach to be able to develop that. Yes, you've got experienced guys like Marquinhos and Achraf Hakimi, Fabian Ruiz, who won the European Championship so impressively with Spain. But just look at the young guys they've got. Bradley Barcola is a terrific young player. Warren Zaire-Emery is 18, but feels like he's been around forever. Vitinha is young. João Neves has come in, just 20. I really like William Pacho. I think he's a terrific young defender, and he's only 23. So they've put together all of those pieces. It's now about giving them time to develop together, and big tests like this, that's the kind of thing that can really grow those bonds.
Yeah, a huge test tonight. If we just quickly look at the front three for Paris, there is so much pace, so much technical ability. If they do sit in at any point, they will be a wonderful threat on the counter-attack.
Yeah, well, Barcola and Dembele are capable of getting in behind that high defensive line. We know that. And Fabian Ruiz is capable of launching those passes that will make that happen. So I can understand why Luis Enrique has gone for that lineup. It's just about whether they can be ruthless when they get those chances.
The teams are on their way out. 38-year-old Manuel Neuer leading the line-out for Bayern alongside Marquinhos, who wears the armband for Paris Saint-Germain. More than 250 Champions League games between them, and both will surely want to secure a victory tonight to just ease things up a little as we move towards the business end of the league phase. Bayern have their noses slightly in front, but Paris know a win tonight sneaks them ahead. And it's time now, as we see the players line up, for the Champions League theme to ring around the Fußball Arena München.
To the UEFA Champions League Matchday Live team as well. So the biggest game in tonight's serving from the top table of European football, and it kicks off at the venue for this season's UEFA Champions League final, and it's a rerun of the 2020 showpiece. It certainly has a big game feel in Bavaria. Well, the big team news has come from Paris, really. Matvei Safonov preferred to Gianluigi Donnarumma in Ligue 1 at the weekend, and he keeps the #1 jersey tonight as well. Kang-in Lee was expected to start, but like Donnarumma, he's on the bench. So Paris have Safonov in goal, Nuno Mendes, William Pacho, Marquinhos, and the former Borussia Dortmund man, Achraf Hakimi, across the back. Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, and João Neves make up their three-man midfield. Bradley Barcola and Warren Zaire-Emery flanking Ousmane Dembele, another player with Bundesliga experience. For Bayern, it is Harry Kane in form and in front of a three-man attack behind him, which has Kingsley Coman on the left, the Parisian who scored the winning goal in that 2020 showpiece. Leroy Sané preferred to Michael Olise on the right of that attacking trio. So Neuer in goal, Davis, Kim, Upamecano and Lima make up the defence. Kimmich and Goretzka shielding, Coman, Musiala and Sané behind Harry Kane up top. Delighted to have Kevin Hatchard alongside me for this one. Kev, I know that you've been through it already a bit with Ben, but looking at those lineups, where are the surprises and where are the key battles?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Paris's lineup is the way they've constructed that forward line, because Ousmane Dembele and Bradley Barcola will be asked to get behind that high defensive line that Bayern always employ. Fabian Ruiz is the kind of guy that can carry the ball, but also wonderful passer of the ball, so they'll be looking to get those two in behind. For Bayern, pretty much what we expected, but Leroy Sané picked ahead of Olise. Sané's been getting fitter and fitter, and Konrad Laimer given the nod ahead of Rafael Guerreiro, and I think that is defensive, because Guerreiro very, very good technically, maybe Laimer a bit more robust defensively.
Well, it will be Bayern to get us underway, then kicking from right to left at the Fußball Arena München, and immediately it is at the feet of Manuel Neuer, who's halfway inside his own half and then sends the long booming clearance upfield, slapped away towards halfway, where Upamecano's underneath it for Bayern in this, what would you call it, Kevin? A cream ensemble that Bayern are wearing tonight?
Yeah, maybe ecru. Maybe ecru.
Well, OK.
If you know your colours.
I obviously don't know them as well as you do. As Upamecano comes out from the back, he's lost possession to Barcola in a bit of a shady area, but it's now collected by Alphonso Davies, who looks for the quick give and go with Kingsley Coman. Davies has it and is surrounded by 3 Paris players, has to shepherd it back to Kim, who sends it all the way back to Manuel Neuer. And already we can see Vincent Kompany parading around at the edge of his technical area, gesticulating to his players.
Yeah, and that's very much what he's about. He's about that intensity, he's about pushing the players. The players have really warmed to him since he's come in, because I think they're really enjoying the kind of football they're playing. They're enjoying the fact that they're trying to dominate each and every game, and they've certainly been able to do that in the Bundesliga, and they've done it in the 2 home games in the Champions League so far.
Barcola sends it backwards of square for Paris, who are just inside Bayern territory at the moment. Bit of a sloppy pass, which has given it to Harry Kane. Musiala now inside the centre circle, spins it to the right-hand side. He's got options left and right, Laimer. He's gone to Leroy Sané, who knocks it infield to Joshua Kimmich. He just rolls his foot over the ball, and Bayern will build again from the back, with Kim sending it square to Davies. Now it's Kingsley Coman hugging the left touchline. 90 seconds played in Munich. Still goalless between Paris and Bayern. A rerun of the 2020 final. That was settled by Kingsley Coman's solitary goal in Lisbon, and he is in this Bayern side this evening and looking to chase a ball down the left channel for the Bavarians now. He's up against the Paris skipper Marquinhos, who's seen him off, but then given the ball away to Harry Kane dangerously. Kane couldn't find Musiala with the pass. Just a couple of sloppy moments from Paris early on.
Yeah, and that's something they can't afford to do, Mark, because Bayern have players who can turn defence into attack so quickly. Just an interesting tactical point early here. Bayern are favoured a kind of 2-3-5 shape in build-up, so 5 in the attacking line. It's more of a 4 here. They've got the 2 wingers, and what you've got is Kane and Musiala interchanging. There was speculation about that in the build-up to this game. That does seem to be the case. The wingers will stay wide, and those 2 in the centre will rotate.
That's European football expert Kevin Hatchard with us on UEFA Champions League Matchday Live. Goalless between Bayern and Paris, with just under 3 minutes on the clock in Munich. Alphonso Davies is closed down by Zaire Emery, but manages to smuggle it back to Joshua Kimmich, and that's a lovely crossfield switch from him to find Leroy Sané peeling out to the right flank. He's up against Nuno Mendes at the moment, comes inside of him by the edge of the area. Lovely dummy by Harry Kane, and then Goretzka couldn't quite get his shot away quickly enough, but that was fine flowing stuff from Bayern.
The idea was right. Sané coming in, he saw Goretzka making the burst from midfield. He's so good at that, just saw the first touch get away from it.
Bayern on top at the moment, still waiting for the breakthrough. Musiala by the edge of the area, rolls it into Kane, and Goretzka's hit, I think, came off Harry Kane, and eventually Paris smuggle it away, but they are knocking at the door at the moment.
And what you'll see is, because those 2 have played a lot of football together, Goretzka and Kimmich in the middle, they know when Kimmich can come back and drop, and that allows Goretzka to push forward and make the extra man in midfield. Saw that a lot on Friday in the game against Augsburg in the Bundesliga here. They have that licence to push Goretzka forward.
Plenty of goals in the earlier kickoffs. Milan 3-2 winners away at Slovan Bratislava. Atletico were 6-0 victors away at Sparta Praha. It's goalless in all of the other games at the moment. We will keep you up to date with any goals as they go in, as Davies works it to the left for Bayern. The game being played near exclusively in the Paris half at the moment, and that move just breaks down, but Marquinhos and Zaire Emery under pressure, and that's a cheap corner. corner conceded by Warren Zaire-Emery after some good pressure from Kingsley Coman.
It's a brilliant start from Bayern, Mark. It's exactly what they wanted to do. This is what they do these days. They get on the front foot and they stay there. And they know they're taking risks, but they want to squeeze the opposition and make it almost impossible for them to progress the ball up the field. So it's been a really strong start from Bayern. Paris just need a bit of possession here just to play their way into the game.
5 minutes gone as Kimmich gets ready to deliver this corner kick. It's into a tricky area and dealt with well by Safonov. First serious test for the Russian goalkeeper, who's in the side ahead of Donnarumma tonight. He played in the league at the weekend. Real debate about who would get the nod tonight, and it is the summer signing who did get the jersey, and he dealt with that cross decently enough. But Bayern keeping up the pressure. Zane loops it backwards to Min-jae Kim, and Kim will find safety in the shape of Lima. He's forced to retreat, and Kim has to get a hurry on as he shepherds it back to Manuel Neuer, who's under a bit of pressure, and having been put under pressure, just about smuggles the ball across to Alphonso Davies in the left-back area.
He likes to take a risk now and again, Manuel Neuer. I think that's fair to say. But if anybody's got that ice-cool approach, it's him. He just has total belief that he's in control of every situation, and it does draw players towards him and open up gaps when you play through that first wave of pressure. But it's tantalising for the opposition sometimes.
Neuer has it now for Bayern with 6 minutes played. These two famous clubs meeting for the 4th time in 6 seasons. It's a sequence that includes that victory in the 2020 UEFA Champions League final for Bayern. And in this current format, they still have work to do in the new league phase. Bayern have won both of their home games, but they are looking to pick up some points against Paris this evening, and Ben Haynes has details of other action taking place tonight.
Yeah, 2 goals to get you up to speed on Florian Wirtz from the spot for Leverkusen with a wonderful penalty. And then Arsenal have taken the lead away at Sporting through Gabi Martinelli.
Musiala suddenly has a chance. Great save by Safonov. Chested it down nicely inside the area. There was no flag, and he cracked it towards the Paris goal, and the goalkeeper did very well indeed to make the block.
It's the kind of run that Musiala's been making all season long. He's been getting more goals. He's been getting into more attacking areas. Vincent Kompany has worked really hard with him since the coach arrived. Lots of film study, lots of analysis on how they can get him into the box more often and get him scoring more goals. And that was a fine save by Safonov, but it shows the danger that Bayern pose, because it's not all about Harry Kane. He won't just stand still as a reference point. He'll sometimes make a vacuum at that space.
All of a sudden, though, they're in trouble here. Ousmane Dembele found himself inside the Bayern penalty area. That was really slack from the home side. Dembele will feel he should perhaps have done better, but credit must go to Goretzka for the covering from midfield.
Superb challenge, Mark, and it has to be, because the ball gets played through and Goretzka with those long legs able to make the block, because it looks as though Dembele is going to score, but it's a really good piece of defending.
Well, a chance comes and goes for both sides as Paris get ready to deliver the resulting corner. Upamecano's underneath it. Leroy Sané, a bit of a heavy touch by the D of his own area. Gets away with it, it bobbles out, and it'll be a throw to Paris roundabout level with the edge of the Bayern penalty area. Lively start in Bavaria, but still goalless with 8 minutes on the clock between Bayern and Paris. Musiala in the left-back position has tried to nick it away from Hakimi. It comes out of him for a Bayern throw, and we can go back to bed.
2 more goals to get you up to speed with away at Bern. Atalanta have gone 1-up through Retegui, and then Robert Lewandowski, who else, from the spot for Barca.
As Sané bombs away on the left-hand side and gets it into a promising area, cut out by William Pacho, who was covering, but gaps starting to emerge at both ends, Kevin Hatchard.
Yeah, the game's getting stretched, and what we've seen as well is Zané's come to this left-hand side and Coman switched out to the right, so they're just giving them a different look already, and Bayern have won themselves this corner.
And it's going to be a corner that will be bent in by Joshua Kimmich. It caused a bit of a problem for Safonov the last time he popped one in just underneath the crossbar. Not the greatest delivery from him this time, though. Cleared away easily enough at the near post. It will run out of play, will it? It has just gone out of play, so it will be a throw to Bayern deep in Paris territory, which they've taken quickly. Hurled back towards Alphonso Davies, who works it all the way back to his keeper, Manuel Neuer. Trademark position for him, about 10 metres outside his penalty area. Konrad Laimer now, preferred to Guerrero in that right-back position, as Kevin was talking about a little earlier on. And now it's Kimmich who's under the pump a bit, having received the ball from Manuel Neuer in the D of the Bayern box. And they're back with Upamecano. The good squeeze from Paris has forced the slightly false pass, and they've coughed up possession. Marquinhos has it.
That was really good from Paris. They cut off all of the options there, made it really difficult for Kimmich, who does in this system drop deep a lot to help out the two centre-backs. He'll often get things started, but he was facing his own goal there and he could feel the pressure. That was really good from Luis Enrique's team.
Not so good from Safanov, the goalkeeper, who has just launched it straight down the throat of Manuel Neuer. So possession given away badly by Paris there. 10 minutes gone. It's flown by in Bavaria as both sides still search for the breakthrough, but there have been plenty of goals elsewhere so far.
What an opening 10 minutes this has been. Leverkusen against Salzburg. They've gone 2-0 up with a wonderful free kick from Grimaldo. And young boys, how important could this goal be? They've levelled things up at home against Atalanta through Gambula.
Nice one. Thank you very much indeed, Ben, and reaction to all of today's matches, and look ahead to some of tomorrow's action to come after full-time at the Fußball Arena München, where with 10 minutes played, it's still goalless between Bayern and Paris, with 10 minutes on the clock. Hakimi, who's deep in his own half, has played it square to Zaire Emery. He's lost out. A couple of challenges snapping at him, as Kim was played into a slightly awkward position with Dembele on him on the right flank as Paris looks at it, but he's levered it back to Manuel Neuer.
It's an old-school Bundesliga battle between Hakimi and Alphonso Davies, because, of course, Hakimi was at Borussia Dortmund, and those two had some really good scraps. So both very quick, both very attack-minded.
Manuel Neuer's just played a first-time pass out from his penalty area, which looked as though it might have been intercepted, but it's set Bayern away, and Coman chasing this down the left flank now has Marquinhos for company, trying to hold off Marquinhos, and he's done so successfully. Worked it back to Musiala, 20 metres out from goal. Square now for Laimer, who's worked it on for Leroy Sané. His effort too close to Safanov, but Paris make a bit of a meal of clearing it. Eventually it rebounds out for a goal kick. Good position taken up by Leroy Sané, not a great strike though.
See, Konrad Laimer's never scored a Bundesliga goal for Bayern. He has scored in the cup. I just wonder if actually the option was him to shoot, because he had a better angle. By the time he'd given it to Sané, the angle's a bit tighter then, and it allows Safanov to make the save. So I think if Laimer just maybe had a bit more belief that he could score from there, and he can, he's got it in his locker, maybe he should have shot. But Bayern posing a threat yet again. But I feel the last few minutes, Paris have played their way in. They're getting some possession now, starting to get that press working. So it's been a fascinating start to the game.
And with Matvei Safanov having made a couple of competent saves. Of course, the TV cameras at the Fußball Arena München have zoomed in on Gianluigi Donnarumma, who is on the substitutes bench for Paris tonight. Neuer clears long upfield, and it's broken for Musiala, who scoops it forwards for Sané on the right flank. He was trying to play through Konrad Laimer, who'd made an excellent run through the middle, but didn't quite have enough juice on the pass, and Paris were able to smuggle it away.
He was asking a lot of himself there, because he's moving out to the touchline on his weaker right foot, so he's got to do a hell of a lot to whip that round and try and get it through to Laimer. But you'll see that a lot, Mark. You'll see Laimer sometimes make the extra man in midfield and invert, and sometimes you'll see him make that underlapping run through the half space, as we call it, the old inside right channel. You'll see him surge through there a lot. It's one of the features of what Kompany has done. Sometimes Alphonso Davies on the left-hand side will almost be a winger, or sometimes an extra forward for Bayern. They're very adventurous in that regard.
Two of the most famous names in European competition, but it's not been plain sailing for either of them. Bayern have won both of their home games in this new league phase in the UEFA Champions League, but been defeated in both of their away matches. 1-0 at Aston Villa, 4-0 away at Barcelona. Paris have an even lower total on the board at the moment, just 4 points on the board, conceding in the 93rd minute to lose at home to Atletico last time out. Their only victory came against tournament debutants Girona on match day 1. and that was by virtue of a 90th minute own goal. So room for improvement for Luis Enrique's side.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, and I think the fascinating thing about this game is how ruthless are they going to be able to be in attack, because their expected goals figure's been over 7, they've only scored 3, so that tells its own story. They've been
Blimey, if they got me and you up
chances. front. Oh, maybe me. I think you could score a few in your time, I seem to remember.
Well, Bayern have looked the more likely to open the scoring in this encounter. It has become a regular fixture, 4th time in 6 seasons that they are going toe-to-toe. And in recent times, it has been Bayern who have had the better of things as well, of course, including that final victory in 2020. Hakimi sends it backwards of square. And it's going to be run across by Vitinha, back to his keeper. Safanov now booms it upfield. And Upamecano's used his strength to just lever Bradley Barcola out of the way. There was some discussion about Lima's inclusion, perhaps being down to to him being able to deal better with the pace threat that Barcola brings ahead of Guerrero.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, I think he's played on that position a lot. We know him as a central midfielder. He played there a lot for Leipzig, but he can play that right-back role, and he's done it successfully of late. With Guerrero, it's very much about what he brings you on the ball. Technically, he's so gifted, but I think defensively, Lima is a bit more robust.
Looking for Barcola down that left channel, but Upamecano's across to deal with it. Lima now has it for Bayern, and he works it back to Manuel Neuer. Quarter of an hour gone. Bayern with 66% possession. 3 attempts manufactured from that amount of the ball. And so far, Paris will be pretty satisfied with how things are panning out.
I think they will, but I think what's interesting is, when do you ever see Paris with a pass accuracy of 71%? I think what Luis Enrique will want, what he always wants, is spells, if they can, where they can play under pressure in tight spaces and keep possession. It's not an easy thing to do. Bayern are excellent at bringing that pressure, but they've got to try and do it. They've got to try and keep the ball to try and open up some space.
Bit of error with the header from Lima, who was back helping out his defence there. It nearly span dangerously into the path of Barcola. Instead, it's pumped forwards for Coman to chase, and this is a real race for Achraf Hakimi. But all of those Bayern supporters inside the football arena tonight will know just how fast Achraf Hakimi is from his time playing in Germany, and he turned on the burners there.
Usually, Kingsley Coman's gone. You're not catching him, but Achraf Hakimi not only got there, but managed to get himself between Coman and the ball. Really good defending. I think he's really improved his defensive game, actually. I think he worked really well with Antonio Conte at Inter, and I think Conte developed that side of the game, because he said to him, look, we know what you can do going forward. You've got that. Now, if you want to get to the next level, you have to be better defensively, and I think he is.
Safanov has taken the resulting set piece for Paris and just sent it straight down towards Manuel Neuer, who has the ball in his hands, bounces it a couple of times, and then looks to dispatch it with a long bowl out towards the halfway line, which finds Leroy Sané, and that's a lovely worked 1-2. Lima bursting forwards from fullback. Paris wanted an offside. They don't get it. Kane, well, he had it in the D of the area. Sané was making a really intelligent run. He tried to play it into his path. It was slightly behind him, so the move broke down. Paris nearly found themselves in trouble after being a bit too cute getting it out from the back, and instead, though, they've got themselves a free kick for a handball deep inside their own half. Harry Kane looks exasperated with the referee's decision there, but he'll probably be frustrated with himself for not playing the right pass.
I think he is upset with himself, because that, by his standards, was a relatively simple layoff into the path of his teammate, but he just didn't get enough on it. There was one the other day, actually, against Union Berlin in this stadium, that kind of situation, and it was perfect from him, and he set up Coman for a goal. So he's absolutely capable of playing that type of pass.
So the free kick for Bayern after that handball, central area, about 40 metres out from goal. Kimmich flights it in towards the corner of the penalty area, and they've not really picked up Musiala across there. But the flag is now raised, so the move breaks down. Just made his run perhaps a touch too early. It was a close decision. There were a number of Bayern players that were definitely in offside positions. there's a bit more touch and go over Musiala.
Yeah, he broke out the pack quite late, didn't he? And he is becoming more and more of a threat in that kind of scenario. He's actually getting better in the air recently. 4 of his last 7 goals have been headers. So that's just added a new dimension to his game, because before that run, he'd only ever scored twice with his head in his whole pro career. So he's just added that to his game. And that's what I really respect about Musiala. He's always trying to add things to his game, always trying to get better. It's amazing to think he's still only in his early 20s.
20 minutes more or less on the clock in Munich, and still goalless between Bayern and Paris. Davis in the left-back area for Bayern, immediately closed down by Zaire Emery, and Paris have managed to nick the ball away. Dembele from the D goes for an effort, but no real venom on it, and it just dribbles through to Manuel Neuer. But well, there's been some lovely attacking play so far. One thing that's been noticeable is a couple of mistakes that could have proved costly at both ends.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's about being ruthless. It's about making the most of those opportunities. Dembele there, edge of the penalty area. Bayern fans know all about him. He scored a winning goal on this ground for Borussia Dortmund in the past. Having got into the position, he just didn't catch hold of it, and it was comfortable for Neuer. When they get in those positions, they have to make more of them. But I think the opening 20 minutes have been fascinating, Mark. I think it's wide open.
Yeah, an intriguing tactical battle at the moment, but we still await the opening goal. Have there been any more goals around the continent, Ben?
Yeah, Arsenal really hitting their stride now. Kai Havertz on the score sheet after a wonderful cross from Bukayo Saka.
And Bayern motoring forwards with Musiala at the moment, who just tried to wriggle away from a couple of challenges. And then Goretzka's left the ball behind, so here's an opportunity for Zaire Emery to carry it high up the pitch. He offloads to Dembele, right flank as Paris look at things. Dembele stood up by Kim, plays it infield towards Zaire Emery, nearly came to him, but Joshua Kimmich is back in the right place to mop things up and send it back to his keeper.
His man transformed, Kimmich. I think he really feels now that he's back to being one of the main players in this team. He's been empowered by Vincent Kompany to not only play in a defensive role at times, but also to use his creativity to get forward. So he's very much a two-way player again. Of course, he spent a lot of time at right back, not just for Germany, but for Bayern. But in this midfield role this season, he's been excellent.
There was a thought that maybe Fabian Ruiz's inclusion today is almost to play a bit of a man-marking role on Joshua Kimmich, because so much of their play begins with him coming out from the back.
Yeah, he's been very much the guy who dictates the tempo, dictates the play. He has that ability to not only play the ball wide, but he can play a lovely angled ball over the top as well when you've got runners in behind. So he's got that full range.
Zane almost onto another loose ball that slipped away after an errant Paris pass, but no harm done. And we're almost midway through the first period, goalless between Bayern and Paris, as Luis Enrique tries to get a bit more from his players, and the Bayern supporters rise as one to try and rouse their troops as well. Throw taken on halfway by Davis. Back to Kim, who's closed down by Dembele. It's a bit of a false pass from him. Neuer's had to come outside of his area to try and deal with it. Scoops it forwards and needs to just get back into his goal while Paris pop it around in centre field. Kane falling, still managed to offload to Upamecano. He shifts it out towards Sane. Not enough on the pass though, so here come Paris down the left with Nuno Mendes. Early ball in towards Dembele. Well watched by Kim, needed to as well, otherwise Dembele would have had a clear strike at goal. Sane then goes down under pressure and wins a free kick deep in Bayern territory. Kevin Hatchard.
Lima got away with one there because he tried to jump and he tried to go and win the ball, and then he got caught out of position, and Nuno Mendes had a free run down that left-hand side. Couldn't quite find the right cross. But what's amazing about this game, there's so much pace on both teams. So if you make a mistake, suddenly a player's away from you because they can cover 30, 40 metres in the blink of an eye. So it's a high-wire act for both of these teams at the moment. It's the kind of game that Luis Enrique generally doesn't really like, because he wants his team to set the tempo, dominate possession, be in control. That's never going to happen against Bayern, so they've got to make do with what they can fashion.
Zaire Emery turning from right back inside of his own half, but turning into trouble, and the ball spins out for a throw on the halfway line. Paris played 4 games against German clubs last season, all of them against Borussia Dortmund. 2-0 winners at the Parc de France on match day 1, a 1-1 draw in Germany rather, on match day 6, but then lost 1-0 home and away in the semi-finals. I think if you offered them a 1-1 draw tonight, they might take it. Here's Zane, 30 metres out from goal, square to Lima. He's got Musiala inside the penalty area. He's found him now. Musiala just blocked off, and they're going to have to build again. Kimmich pops it towards the left. Not enough elevation on the pass, though. Hakimi was there to cut it out, and then just cuts a bit of a frustrated figure because his teammates have given the ball away again.
Yeah, that's the problem. They're winning the ball at times. They're not keeping it.
Kane nearly in. Marquinhos was wise to it and just slid in to make a well-timed challenge inside the penalty area. The ball bobbles out for a throw to Bayern. Well, there was a lot of cut and thrust about Bayern early on. They're still getting a fair amount of territory and a decent amount of possession, but not quite the same pizzazz that we saw at the start.
No, and I think what's changed is that Paris are managing to cause them a problem going back the other way, so there's a bit more risk in it for Bayern now. They'll still play that high defensive line, but they were having things all their own way in the opening few minutes, and Paris couldn't get out. That's changed a little bit now, and Paris have been able to break the lines a few times themselves and get Bayern running back the other way. So it's much more of a two-way situation for Paris now, rather than just being pushed back on the back foot.
25 minutes gone, goalless between Bayern and Paris. Earlier on, AC Milan 3-2 winners at Slovan Bratislava, and Atletico thumped Sparta Praha 6-0 in Czechia earlier on as well. We'll have a full roundup of all the goals up and down the continent for you during the break, and we can actually find out what's happening right now from Ben.
Inter take the lead at San Siro. Cross in from DeMarco. De Vrij's header, and it takes a nudge off a defender and goes in for an own goal. Inter 1, RB Leipzig 0.
0-0 between Bayern and Paris in Bavaria as Koeman goes down under a bit of pressure from Hakimi, just clipped on his heel.
Just seen a couple of really lovely bits of play from Vitinha, Mark, because the first was Harry Kane was trying to press him and he just ghosted away from him, not once but twice. Second, he pinged a lovely 40-metre ball out to the wing. He is a great player to watch. He's got so much better in the last year or so, and he's actually starting to become quite a big figure in this midfield, not in terms of stature, but in terms of the way he really approaches the game. Really enjoy the way that he's developing game by game.
Harry Kane enjoying a bit of a battle with Nuno Mendes. He's gone down off the pitch as a result of that, and just clutches his shin after he received the clattering there. Upamecano square to Kim, and he scampers across to the left of the pitch to rescue the situation. Alphonso Davies forwards to Musiala. It's broken down though. Hakimi then loses his footing. Nothing illegal about the challenge, so no free kick forthcoming for Paris, and Bayern look to spin it from left to right quickly. Kimmich bursting forwards, offloads to Konrad Lima. Square pass from him finds Goretzka by the centre circle in the Paris half. Square again for Davis. Now it's Koeman hugging the left touchline again. Hakimi trying to block him off. He's away from him easily. Into the area now, Kingsley Coman. Wonderful run. Shame about the finish. About 6 metres out from goal. A wild lash that goes high and wide after he'd showed such trickery to weave his way into the box.
That's what Kingsley Coman's all about. He's so good one-on-one. He's got that balance. He can go inside, he can go outside, gets away from Hakimi. Then he trusts himself to burst away from João Neves and the challenge of Warren Zaire-Emery. And he just doesn't wrap his boot around it. He's trying to cut across it and slice it into that top corner. And he just didn't quite make the right decision, but everything that preceded the shot was mesmerising.
Yep, the man who got the only goal when they met in the UEFA Champions League final in 2020, off target, with another presentable chance for Bayern. They've had the better of the opportunities as we edge towards the half-hour mark and still await the breakthrough in Bavaria. Here is Goretzka for Bayern. Goes backwards of square to Upamecano, who sends it all the way home to Manuel Neuer. Heavy touch from him again. He does like to keep us on our toes as commentators when he has the ball at his feet. And Bayern this time guilty of giving the ball away cheaply. Barcola sent it wide to the left. They've got runners in the centre here. And Zaire Emery from about 10 metres out. First time low, side-footed effort. Goes well wide of the target. And that was a very, very big chance because he had nobody near him.
It's the first time, Mark, they've got Barcola involved, and what happens is he draws a man in, spins, is able to play it down that left-hand side. That creates the overload. Warren Zaire-Emery knows that he has to at least hit the target. There's nobody anywhere near him. He's got the opportunity to side-foot that goalwards, and he just doesn't quite get around the ball, and it just slides off his instep and goes wide. But Paris in general, I think, will be really encouraged by having made that chance.
A couple of goals to get you up to speed with. What a start for Leverkusen. They now lead 3-0 against Salzburg. Florian Wirtz has scored again, and it looks as though Atalanta have not just gone 2-1, they've gone 3-1 up at the moment. De Ketelaere scored the second goal, and they've just scored again to make it 3-1 through Kolasinac, who feeds the ball past the goalkeeper with so much panache. What a finish that is.
So goals elsewhere, still awaiting for the breakthrough in Bavaria as Luis Enrique just hops around in his technical area. The ball is worked back to Neuer, and again it's not the best first touch, but then I tell you what, the next one was pretty handy. Little Cruyff turn to get away from Ousmane Dembele. Not exactly short of confidence when he has the ball at his feet, is the veteran Bayern goalkeeper. Pop forwards now for Hakimi to chase right in front of Vincent Kompany's technical area, and they'll work it from right to left and find their skipper Marquinhos, who's deep in his own territory. Kevin Hatcher.
I suppose when you've taken those risks for as long as he has in his career, they kind of cease to feel risky, really, and he has total belief in what he's doing at all times. But what it will do is it will encourage Paris to just keep on pressing him, because eventually the ball might fall to them. Eventually they might catch him out, so they will just keep on doing it. I think as the game has worn on, I think their pressing's got better and better, and that's what's changed the game, because Bayern were finding it fairly straightforward to play through the thirds early on. Now they're having to work a lot harder to play through the pressure.
Absolutely, and they've not been able to play through the pressure in their latest passage of play, because it's rebounded into the Bayern half, and Upamecano goes chasing after it and knocks it back to his keeper Manuel Neuer. Again outside of his box, into the feet of Goretzka, who nearly lost out. Zaire Emery slaps his thighs in frustration. He wasn't able to quite get the touch to take it away from him. Instead, Davis has brought it forwards deep into Paris territory. Musiala then levered off it, but nothing wrong with the challenge. And here is Fabian Ruiz now bursting forwards, taking the ball towards the edge of the area. Dembele by the right corner, jinking and weaving, taking on Kim and going for goal, and Neuer gets down to slap it away. And then the rebound is fired not too far wide by João Neves on the follow-up. Well, that was all about the trickery of Ousmane Dembele. Took on Kim, managed to carve out the shooting opportunity, but couldn't beat Manuel Neuer.
Yeah, the angle was against him, Dembele, but the follow-up from João Neves is so cleanly struck. He has hit that so fiercely, and it's what, you know, a few inches outside the post. I mean, it's a really good strike. Really
Mightily close, as we saw on the most recent of the replays on our TV monitors. It really did just whistle past the upright. Here's Konrad Laimer, though, for Bayern now. 33 minutes on the clock as he finds Musiala about 40 metres out from goal. Koeman's swung it to the right-hand side, and Leroy Sané taking on Nuno Mendes, but not beating him. Nuno Mendes stuck out a boot and has won the ball and has it now in the left-back area. Sané trying to win it back. It's rebounded off Leroy Sané as he made the block from the fairly lazy attempted clearance by Nuno Mendes. So Bayern have got possession again and then promptly lose it as Goretzka plays a slack pass. Nuno Mendes in the left-back area again has popped it forwards. It took a touch and goes out for a throw on halfway.
Yeah, I think Paris will look at this first half and think, despite being on the back foot for the first 5, 6, 7 minutes, they've really grown into the game. They're pressing well. They're showing that they've got that speed on the counter-attack. The one thing they've lacked, and where have we seen this movie before with Paris in the Champions League, is that finishing touch. They've made some good attacking positions, just haven't made the most of them so far.
Here's Alphonso Davies in the left-back area for Bayern. locked forwards for Kingsley Coman to chase. Paris were expecting a flag, which doesn't come. Coman has knocked it in field. Kane's got a bit of room here. Harry Kane works it on towards Sané. Oh dear. Well, Harry Kane would 99 times out of 100 be able to play that pass in his sleep into the path of Leroy Sané, but he completely overhit it, and it rolls out for a goal kick.
Did we really just see that?
Well, yeah, quite.
I thought he was going to strike it, actually. I thought he got himself into a really good position, but having tried to be unselfish and tried to play the pass, he just got it, by his standards, badly wrong. But we know how creative he is. We know how good he is. That pass he played for England against the Republic of Ireland recently, brilliant.
Here's Harry Kane now, about a couple of metres outside the area, squares it to Goretzka, who knocks it wide to the left, and Musiala. Musiala held up by Zaire Emery and has to retreat a few metres to find Alphonso Davies, and Bayern now back in centre field after good defensive organisation from those wearing blue. Here is Upamecano now, rolling his foot over the ball, waiting for the angle for the pass, knocks it in towards Harry Kane, who swivels under pressure, shields the ball nicely. Sané works it to the right, chance for Lima maybe to get the ball in. Lima opts against that though and finds Upamecano instead. Kimmich, bit of a slack pass from him again, not enough pace on it. And here comes Dembele, who's certainly got plenty of pace. He tries to roll it in towards Zaire Emery. It misses him, but is collected by Achraf Hakimi, who's got Davies for company. Davies has done a good job because Hakimi's had to go all the way back into his own half.
Yeah, he's done really well. I think he actually was trying to spread the play to Hakimi, but he didn't quite get it right, so Hakimi couldn't race onto it in the way that he wanted to, and that allowed Bayern to cut down the angle. Hakimi just down for a moment. But what we're seeing from Paris is they're starting to use the pace that they have, and they're covering big distances in a short amount of time, and they're causing Bayern some problems.
10 minutes to go until half-time. Bayern 0, Paris 0 on UEFA Champions League Matchday Live as the referee gets an inadvertent touch on the ball, so they will have to stop play and recommence. And while the players berate him, he turns around and says, well, look, there wasn't really a great deal I could do about that.
No, there's a reason that he's not in midfield rather than a referee, and there's no way he was going to be able to get out of the way of that. And it shows you as well the pace of the game, because the ball is moving so quickly in midfield. The two teams pressing each other, looking for those gaps, looking for those opportunities. I think it's been a fascinating game so far. Bayern have got some real problems to solve. They are still packing a punch, especially with Coman.
Coman away on the left-hand side, feeding Harry Kane, who played a very intelligent little lift over the top for Musiala to chase, and Vitinha had to get there first.
When Kane had that wayward pass towards Sané earlier on, it's that kind of moment from Kane that means we criticised him, because he is capable of so much. That was a really, as you say, deft touch into Musiala's path. Really nice idea.
Led to another Bayern corner then, and there's a yellow card for Ousmane Dembele, which I imagine can only be down to dissent directed towards the referee. So that's the first caution that we've seen this evening, as Joshua Kimmich gets ready to try and put this into, I think we know where it's going. It's a very congested 6-metre area that Matvei Safonov, the goalkeeper for Paris, is trying to command. Cluster of Bayern and Paris shirts are in there, and Kimmich, I assume, will try and just drop it into that area. He hasn't got enough elevation on it, and he's very lucky that the clearance from Fabian Ruiz is spooned behind for another corner.
He's done that a couple of times. It's not like him, really. He's usually so adept from this kind of position.
Well, we can see where he wants to get it, because everyone is crowding around the goalkeeper on his goal line. That's a better ball in, and it nearly went all the way in. Bayern score. It's done the job. Kim is there to head Bayern in front. Well, the set piece eventually pays off. Kimmich put it into just the right area. Paris couldn't quite scramble it away, and Min-Jae Kim was on hand to use his head and give Bayern the advantage shortly before the break. Bayern 1, Paris 0.
We said we were surprised when Joshua Kimmich hit the first man with the previous corner. That's why he's usually so good from this kind of scenario. That corner is just about perfect, because it forces Safonov to come and try try and punch it, and he just doesn't get enough on the punch. He's worried, I think, about clattering the post. He gets no distance on it at all, really. Just punches it down into the floor, and there's Kim, can't believe his luck, bounced up right in front of him, and there he is, unchallenged, to nod it home. Luis Enrique, the Paris coach, will be furious because his team has played really well for a big chunk of this first half, and then to give away a goal like that.
Well, a lot of attention had been on the selection of the goalkeeper this evening. Matvei Safonov got the call ahead of Gianluigi Donnarumma. He'd done pretty well up until then, but I'm sure he'll feel somewhat disappointed at not dealing with the corner better. There is a VAR check to see if there was any